Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Pirates, God Level Collection, leading Luffy to become the king. Chapter 81. And so far, there has been no regular upgrade effect with increasing difficulty. It seems that as long as Sha Chen can collect it, his physical and mental strength can continue to increase. This is unreasonable for a mature plugin, but for the current user Sha Chen, it is a good job. Keep it up. Maybe one day, without relying on other abilities, the two attributes of physical and mental strength alone will be enough for me to become the strongest in the world. Take the physical attribute for example. It not only represents the upper limit of physical strength, reaction ability, defense ability, but also recovery ability. Imagine that one day Sha Chen's physical attribute reaches an extremely high level, which cannot be cut by a knife. Even if the enemy goes through great pains to make a small cut on Sha Chen's finger will heal instantly. How desperate would it be if the speed at which the opponent causes damage is not as fast as the speed at which he heals? Sha Chen is looking forward to that day. He also thinks that this should be his own way to immortality. And now this data of 2,000 times that of ordinary people is already outrageous. After all, he felt that even if he was as strong as Garp at his peak, in terms of physical fitness alone, it couldn't be 2,000 times that of an ordinary person. The fishman Aaron claimed to be an evolved version of humans, but he was only 10 times stronger than an ordinary human. So a more accurate statement should be that Garp, a strong man, has a combat power 2,000 times that of an ordinary human. There must be a problem with the so-called quantification of plugins. 2,000 times, in the real world, he should have become a god long ago. But if it is Kaido, who is known as the strongest creature, it is possible. After all, he has the blessing of the mythical beast species, the blue dragon form fruit. With such a horizontal comparison, Sha Chen felt that he could not be proud, and he was far from strong enough, so he continued. However, today's consumption is enough, and he will fight for 2 more days, and the newly improved strength also needs to be adapted. In addition to stimulating each other, his previous battle with Zoro was mainly to hone his strength with the help of the other party. He must integrate the advantages of elementalization into his own combat system as quickly as possible. Hey, Zoro is eating. Suddenly I feel a little hungry. The previous battle with Sha Chen consumed too much energy, especially the ghost energy that burst out at the end. Just right, me too. Sha Chen sat down opposite Zoro without hesitation, picked up a big bone and started to bite it. Logically speaking, he had been sleeping for 13 days, and he should be hungry after waking up, but this time he was not. I think in addition to the large amount of energy he absorbed before the fusion of genes, elementalization also occupied an important influencing factor. After all, the nutrients that the human body can absorb are, in the final analysis, carbon, water, protein, vitamins, etc. Sha Chen's elementalization can convert physical strength into carbon water, and the carbon water is absorbed and becomes energy that can be absorbed by the body, thereby restoring physical strength. Hey, isn't this a bug? Perpetual motion machine. Actually not. It's just that this alternative elementalization improves Sha Chen's absorption and utilization efficiency of energy. It really deserves to be a skill comparable to the dark gold level. When the two were eating happily, Bell personally delivered Cobra's message. Sha Chen had no choice but to stand up, and an idea appeared in the royal hall. He was holding a big bone in his hand. Chew, chew, chew. The sound of Sha Chen chewing nervously startled Cobra, who was waiting for him at the door of the hall. The latter shuddered and looked back. It was Sha Chen, and he breathed a sigh of relief. It's you, Sha Chen. Sha Chen raised his eyebrows and heard something else from the words, it seems that you haven't had a good time these days. Cobra smiled bitterly and restored his kingly attitude. He asked Sha Chen to go to the side hall to talk in detail, and asked Carl, the jackal fruit ability user, to guard outside. Seeing the other party's serious look, Sha Chen knew that the other party wanted to tell him a secret. He also thoughtfully transformed the water flow to close the entire room and control the frequency jump so that the sound in the room could not be transmitted. Cobra's eyes lit up. It was indeed the water fruit. It was so suitable for Alabasta. It's like this, Sha Chen, take a look at this first. He took out a note from his sleeve. Sha Chen took a look at it. Spandam, wow, it turns out that it has been operating in secret. Arrest me. Did you eat too much shit? With a thought, He used the water flow to grind it into powder and threw it into a flower pot next to him. I understand what you mean, so how do you want him to die? Wait a minute, Cobra was confused. I mean, this is a secret mission of the world government. Maybe you don't know CP9. Yes. Cobra told Sha Chen about the information he knew about CP. Some of it Sha Chen had never heard of, and some of it Cobra said was not as accurate as what Sha Chen knew. So, you want to entrust me to destroy the entire CP9? This is another price. No, don't fight and kill at every turn, this matter is very serious. Cobra couldn't help but roared. What kind of brain circuit is this, Sha Chen? Can you please stop talking about killing people and silencing them? Although he is the king of Alabasta, above millions of people, Alabasta has become a country without the death penalty under his promotion. He is also the most benevolent and loving monarch in the history of Alabasta. So he knew that the core of the rebel army was in Yuba, but he never confronted them head-on. He just defended the city and tried to solve the problem through conversation. He just watched them grow stronger. I don't know whether to say that he is too heartless or too saintly. That's the villain army, they want to overthrow your rule. If it were Sha Chen, he would go to dig up his ancestors' graves in a minute. You didn't want to entrust us, so what a waste of business. Okay, I know about this matter, don't worry about it. If you get involved with pirates like us, you won't get any benefits even if you are the king. Sha Chen waved his hand. He disappeared in front of Cobra in a flash. Cobra stretched out his hand in vain, and finally fell on the chair helplessly. Pirates are really a group of unreasonable people. Zoro, who was wolfing down his food, didn't see Sha Chen appear in front of him again. He was holding a half-eaten big bone in his hand. It's okay, keep eating, it's just that some ignorant people want to set a trap for us. Don't worry, everything is under control. Sha Chen swallowed it in one gulp, and said casually, practice with me later. No problem. Zoro didn't ask any more questions and ate faster. He needed to recover his strength as soon as possible. Every extra stamina he had would consume more of Sha Chen. Sha Chen was a physical monster, which was a well-known fact on the ship. Although he had received the news, Sha Chen did not make any special arrangements. He just took advantage of the shipbuilding time to continuously train Zoro, Sanji, Luffy and others to earn some extra money. More than 10 days passed in a blink of an eye. His strength had increased to a certain extent. At the same time, their new sailboat had been built. It has to be said that the gap between shipbuilders is really bigger than that between humans and dogs. On this day, everyone gathered beside the lake that had been expanded dozens of times behind the Royal Palace complex. Everyone, we have completed your commission list. Isn't it super beautiful? Frankie put his arms together and showed a very eye-catching posture. But everyone's attention was not on him, but on the large ship in front of them, which was 95 meters long, 55 meters high and 30 meters wide. This is a 3-masted, steam-powered sailing ship. The whole body is dark in color and full of solemnity. What is more valuable is that there is a 5-clawed golden dragon that almost runs through the entire ship. Most of it is attached to the hull on both sides of the ship, completely symmetrically distributed, winding and majestic, and the dragon scales on it are clearly visible. This is actually an energy transmission channel. It can transmit steam as the power of the ship, and it can also change the tube layer structure in it, and shoot a large number of projectiles from these dragon scales, or water bombs with destructive explosions like Sha Chen's water stream bullets. It is very practical. It must be said that in some aspects, the development of technology in the One Piece world has surpassed the ironclad technology in Sha Chen's previous life world. Of course, this golden dragon is gold-plated, and the main material is steel. There is not so much gold in the group. It didn't cost much to build the ship, so the golden reserve was used here. The name was thus determined, Golden Dragon. It was very vulgar, but it was voted in favor of by everyone, even Usopp and Luffy couldn't find fault with it. The Thousand Sunny in the original work was named after the sound of Sunny, which was a foreshadowing, intended to show that Luffy's rubber fruit was actually the mythical beast species, Nika form. But here, it's completely unnecessary. Trench, that's it. Captain, Sha Chen said softly. Luffy, who was jumping up and down excitedly, immediately calmed down, pressed his straw hat with one hand, and jumped onto the bow of the golden dragon. Little guys. Let's go. Yes, Captain. The group either boarded the ship by themselves or came to the deck with the help of Sha Chen. They had already figured out the specific structure inside these days and had made good material reserves. Sha Chen and Nami came to the rudder, which was still on the open deck on the second floor. He put his hand on a metal pipe in front of him, and a large amount of water vapor gathered from the surroundings and poured into the pipe. With a low hum, a large amount of water mist sprayed out from the scales of the dragons surrounding the entire ship, adding a sense of sacredness to the golden dragon, which was like a cloud and mist, and illusory and ethereal. Finally, all the holes were closed under Sha Chen's control, and the power was transmitted to the tail end of the golden dragon pipe, which was the position of the propeller. Under the control of Nami and others, the ship began to leave the port and set sail. Follow the river that Sha Chen spent a lot of effort to dredge and connect a few days ago and enter the St. Dora River. We will follow the river directly to the east, enter the Rain Land, and enter the sea from here. Originally, the river in Asurabastan could not lead to the Rain Land, but later Cobra found him and knelt down to ask Sha Chen to help several major cities in Alabasta to have some rain. Although there is no dancing powder, this place is dry and rainless, and most of the terrain is desert. When the rainy season comes, I don't know how many people will die. Sha Chen thought, it doesn't matter. Not only can he master the control of water control ability, but also let Cobra owe more favors. He can also look for mice in the dark, because recently, except for Kaku, he has not found any other CP9 shadows, and even Bruno, the spokesperson of the bullhead hairstyle that he has been thinking about, has not seen a fart. He used his ability to fly around Alabasta. Although he has not yet upgraded his water control ability to level 3, Sha Chen feels that he is very close to that level, just a very thin membrane. Of course, the difficulty of upgrading from level 2 to level 3 is beyond Sha Chen's imagination. But Sha Chen, like a savior, made clouds and rain in Alabasta and also won the title of Dragon King. He had an idea and wanted to study the specific cause of the devil fruit. He spent a little more effort to dredge Alabasta and created 3 vertical and 3 horizontal main rivers. Although Alabasta is still mainly a desert landform, with these 3 vertical and 3 horizontal rivers, they will develop more and more oases, feed more people, and clear most of the desert. Of course, this is destined to be a very long process, but whether it is Cobra, Vivi or the citizens of Alabasta, they are already grateful. Some places even spontaneously built temples for Sha Chen. Unfortunately, Sha Chen did not sense anything. He just told Vivi the relevant news and asked her to pay attention to the changes in Alabasta. Will there be new devil fruits? Of course, he also paid a little insignificant reward. Cobra looked at Wei Wei, who was absent-minded, sighed lightly and said, Dad knows you like Sha Chen, but a man like that will never stay in one place. His goal is the new world. Dad is sorry that I can only let you stay here and can't pursue your dreams freely. Vivi came back to her senses, quite moved, and couldn't hold back her tears. She held Cobra's arm tightly with one hand, and gently stroked her abdomen with the other hand, saying, Father, I am already very satisfied. Now I should be sensible. I want to take on the responsibility of a princess. Good child. Cobra gently pulled Vivi into his arms. On the other side, Equalem also completed the delivery of the mission reward with Frankie and others, mainly Adam Bayomu. Although the Golden Dragon has used Adam Bayomu to build the structure of the hull as much as possible, even the material of a small bench used on it is made of Adam Bayomu, which makes those shipbuilders bleed with heartache. But in the end, there are still a lot left. Of course, it is impossible to give all of them to the Seven Water City. So the materials they took away were worth about 300 million Baileys, which was already a high reward. Frankie and the others were also very excited. Especially Frankie. He felt that he was getting closer and closer to the day of restoring the legendary battleship that Teacher Tom passed on to him and his senior brother. After the ship entered the main channel, Sha Chen did not continue to push the ability. Instead, he returned to his room and prepared to rest. It is foreseeable that there will be a big battle next. These days he was busy making clouds and rain in Alabasta, and it was easy to open up the river, but he turned on the observation hockey wherever he went, and found a few familiar guys, especially Aokiji. He even passed by him on a street, but he pretended not to know him. So Sha Chen expected that the next opponents would be at least Aokiji, Navy Colonel T. pen, and Bogart. Back to his vice captain's room. This area of more than 300 square meters is divided into a multi-layer suite structure, and it is also equipped with a special treasure room. It is decorated with exquisite gems everywhere, and the purple and brown lion skin carpet is laid at the door. Came to the brown-red desk made entirely of Adam Bayomu and reviewed the plan made before. There is no problem. Stretched and prepared to take a break. According to the current speed, they will reach the rainy land in the afternoon. Looked at the sheephead logo of the Golden Mary hanging on the wall. This logo was made by disassembling the bow of the original Mary. There is one in every crew room. This is a commemoration of the Mary. Although it sounds cruel, it is better than burning it and pouring the soul juice to the innate sheephead controller. Mary, you may not be able to be born in this life, but it's good this way. It's really unacceptable to think about saying goodbye to you, Sha Chen said to himself. There are not many scenes in the original book that can move me, but the scene that impressed me the most is always the scene where the Golden Mary was burned and buried at sea. But what Sha Chen didn't expect was that the sheep-headed statue that Sha Chen was stroking suddenly trembled. Sha Chen's pupils slightly dilated, and he subconsciously activated the collection technique. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the ship spirit Mary. How is this possible? Looking at the faint white virtual light ball floating in front of him, Sha Chen was stunned, puzzled, and confused. It's not that he had never imagined that the ship spirit had already been born on the Mary. He had also experimented on the wreckage of the Mary, and even when the figurehead had not been decomposed, but he didn't get anything else except some wood and paint. So he had such an unbelievable feeling. Now the ship spirit is alive in his hands, which makes him very puzzled and fortunate at the same time. Speaking of which, the figurehead in his room was made of the part he had collected at the beginning. He immediately used his consciousness to contact the light ball. The corresponding information entered his mind. It can be like this. You are worthy of you, the master of plugins. Sha Chen's eyes lit up, and he summoned Mary without saying a word. A ship spirit wearing a black raincoat, with a face that could not be seen clearly, holding a hammer in one hand and a chisel in the other, and not even as tall as his calf, appeared on the ground in front of him. Vice Captain, you can talk. No, you know me. Sha Chen was even more surprised. He quickly glanced at the plugin panel, and sure enough, a new category, pets, was added to the previous entries. The word, Mary, followed closely behind. Aren't you the Vice Captain? Everyone calls you the Vice Captain. Mary raised his head slightly, and Sha Chen looked at it. It was dark inside and could not be seen clearly. He could only vaguely see two curved horns. So this is really a sheep's head, just like the ship spirit of the Thousand Sunny shown in the original work in the red-haired diva movie. I have to say, it really deserves to be the protagonist group. Other pirate groups may not be able to encounter a ship spirit even if they fight on the sea for a lifetime, but the Straw Hat group has too. The world really favors me. I don't know if there will be a new ship spirit in the future for the current Golden Dragon. However, the Mary in front of me doesn't look smart. Why did you appear? I used to. Sha Chen was stuck. Although this guy has become the pet on his panel, he can't say anything about his magical collection technique. Everyone needs me, right? Need. Pictures flashed through Sha Chen's mind. Yes, whenever the Straw Hat Pirates need Mary, it always appears in a very coincidental way. In this life, the Straw Hat Pirates have their own members. It can't be said that they are crushing and smooth along the way, but in fact, Mary really doesn't have many opportunities to show themselves. Now that this memorial statue of Mary has been placed in his room, Sha Chen will occasionally improve his plans and talk to himself here. It seems that Mary heard it. I was actually moved in my heart. Sha Chen asked Melly for some more information, stumbling over it, and it was no different from what he had learned before. Of course, the most important thing is that this guy can eat devil fruits. Sha Chen thought about it and took out the light fruit from his backpack. Come, eat. Melly took it without saying a word, and then stuffed it into his hood. The crunch, crunch sound of chewing could be vaguely heard. Is it unpalatable? It has no taste, and it feels warm. Sha Chen nodded. After all, the boat spirit is just something that exists in the illusion. If you have to explain it, it is a special kind of mental power. Can it use multiple devil fruits? Sha Chen was a little tempted, but gave up after thinking about it. Don't accidentally kill Melly, and there is no better one now. But is there only one Melly? It's not just me who would talk to the statue of Mary in the house, others should do the same. Although it's not long, everyone still has a lot of feelings for the Mary, especially Luffy and Usopp. The two of them are the oldest, and they have to hold it to sleep every night. Go back and try it quietly. If it works, it's unimaginable. Maybe we can create artificial intelligence in this One Piece world. Hey, it seems that there is no need to be so troublesome. Go back and pick the soul fruit of Big Mom Charlotte Linlin. Isn't this a real artificial intelligence? In this comparison, the ship spirit doesn't seem so high-end. How much can you play now? The last person who had the ability of the light floating fruit could change his weight between 1 kilogram and 10,000 kilogram. I'm not sure if it is the upper limit of the ability of this fruit, but you can try to open it further. For example, strengthen each cell to 100,000 kilograms, you don't seem to have cells. Sha Chen paused, and then let Mary merge into the yellow golden dragon. He glanced at the external panel, and the words, "Infusion," appeared behind Mary. But Sha Chen was able to communicate with Mary through his consciousness, and let it try to activate its ability, reducing the weight of the ship, and Sha Chen's physical strength was consumed. The ship spirit has physical strength, it's amazing, but Sha Chen's supply is safer. Nami, who was sitting under the orange tree on the third deck to enjoy the cool, her expression changed slightly, pushed off the orange sunglasses on her face, and looked around. The wind direction has not changed, the humidity is normal, why is the speed of the ship faster, and, Sha Chen. Nami. The water condensed out of thin air and transformed into the appearance of Sha Chen. He took the orange juice from Nami's hand and inhaled half of it in one breath. Sha Chen, that's what I prepared for Nami-chan. Sanji kicked angrily, and Sha Chen just turned his body and dodged it. He condensed a chain of water and threw him to the lower deck, and by chance, it hit Luffy who was playing with Chopper. Luffy's body was able to maintain the passiveness of rubber, and Sanji was bounced to the side again. Sanji adjusted his balance and glanced at the direction where he was about to land. He did not use the moon step that he had just mastered. He even added some strength when he landed. He stepped heavily on Zoro's stomach. Pervert, do you want to die? Zoro was gathering his strength. Although Sha Chen did not say it clearly, he did not feel that the storm was coming, so it was rare that he did not exercise today. He picked up the good sword Shizu placed next to him and fought with Sanji, but they both controlled the intensity of the battle, which was considered a warm-up in advance. In fact, Sanji could also feel the upcoming battle. Zoro and Sanji are so compatible. You'll get used to it, they're always like this. Sha Chen smiled and replied to Robin, asking Nami what was wrong. Nami told him what she had just discovered. Sha Chen just smiled, without much explanation, and then summoned a thin layer of water at a very slow speed to wrap the entire hull. At this time, they were traveling in the desert, and the sun was shining brightly. The Navy, which had already explored the route of Sha Chen and his party, had already ambushed people and arranged monitoring personnel along the way. But it was obvious that people who could be domineering were also quite rare at this stage. They couldn't arrange such people to track Sha Chen and his party, which was very physically demanding. After all, they could only travel in the desert, so they only arranged people with telescopes and other equipment to observe. Colonel, look, a man in civilian clothes from Alabasta took the telescope from his subordinate and looked at the river in the distance, but found that there was nothing unusual. It was still the Golden Dragon going downstream. With Kaku, they already knew all the information about the ship. Frankie also controlled his impulse very well. He did not use the real core technology on the blueprint passed to him by his master. He just modified the power system according to Sha Chen's requirements. Colonel, the ship was in a trance just now, as if the Marine was slapped by the colonel holding the telescope before he finished speaking. This is in Alabasta. Mirages often appear in the desert of Alabasta. You'll get used to it. The colonel finished speaking and was ready to call for people to move forward. After they completed the handover with the next team, they could go to the ambush site. He subconsciously looked up at the sky and saw more and more clouds gathering from nowhere. Dragon King. Sha Chen did a good thing, but it's a pity that he's a pirate. The colonel muttered. Because of Sha Chen, the average rainfall in Alabasta in recent days is more than the annual average rainfall in the rainy land. This is because Alabasta is mainly desert terrain and has a very weak water storage capacity, otherwise a flood disaster would have broken out long ago. They tracked all the way, and the sky became more and more cloudy. Soon, the shadow of the sun could not be seen within a radius of tens of kilometers. The wind and rain are coming. The air humidity is extremely high, and people who are stuffy want to vomit, and those with weak constitutions can't breathe evenly. There is nothing unusual on the Golden Dragon. The people on it fight and make noise as they should, and they pass through the rainy land smoothly and enter the sea from the nearby port. It looks like a pirate ship with expensive and solemn decorations. It is indeed refreshing. There are also pirate ships wandering around to collect money, but Sha Chen doesn't need to do anything, and it is sunk by Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji on the ship. The others were cheering and encouraging from behind, and they were working hard. After sailing out of the waters near Alabasta, Usopp, who was sitting in the corner, reminded Luffy, Vice Captain Sha Chen, "We have entered the encirclement. According to the current speed, the Navy will complete the encirclement within 30 minutes. Well, everyone, execute according to the plan." "Yes, Vice Captain. Why do you always give orders, and I am the captain?" Bang. "It hurts, Nami, why do you hit me too? Acting should be done in full, Nicola Kentucky said so. Admiral, I wonder how your neck compares to that Za crocodile." Zoro had heard from Sha Chen a long time ago that the 3 admirals of the Navy are all very rare natural ability users, and they are all very strong. He has been practicing hard these days. Although the armed color domineering is gone, his control of ghost energy has improved several times compared to the original work at this time. Moreover, after research, Sha Chen discovered that the ghost energy burning on Zoro's sword is actually very subjective. It will see different colors or forms depending on the enemy, but if you give them a psychological hint in advance, they will follow your idea. So in a sense, this should be a kind of phantom sword technique. It comes with a special power that can directly attack the spirit. As the distance between each other got closer and closer, 15 minutes later, Sha Chen was the first to feel the temperature in the air dropping rapidly. He knew that this was Kuzan's devil fruit ability, but he not only did not stop it, but also welcomed it. 5 minutes later, snowflakes fell from the sky, and a thin layer of ice appeared on the surrounding sea surface, but when those snowflakes drifted within 5 meters of the Golden Dragon, they would be impacted and melted by a heat wave, so they did not affect the Golden Dragon at all. Another 5 minutes passed. The encircled naval warships were already visible from a distance. At a glance, there were more than 30 of them, of which only 4 were large in size. They firmly blocked the 4 directions of the Golden Dragon. Boom boom boom. Without any warning, more than 30 naval warships fired at the same time, and dense shells came overwhelmingly. The Shenlong did not fight back, but suddenly accelerated. When such a huge ship was speeding in the sea, it was extremely flexible and easily avoided the attack of shells. No one on the ship wasted a punch or a sword. A huge naval ship in the south, the bow logo is a huge blue iceberg head, which is still emitting a faint chill, and it continues to spread around. "Admiral, after analysis, the rapid acceleration technology of the hull mastered by the Straw Hat Pirates is indeed related to Sha Chen's devil fruit ability." Bogart, who was standing next to Kuzan, said. "Ah, it should be his superhuman fruit that can control the water flow." Kuzan sat up lazily. "Stop, save some ammunition for the Navy, next." Kuzan got up slowly, his laziness was not concealed. He jumped off the boat and was about to touch the sea surface when the cold air was aroused. Then he landed steadily on a giant piece of ice. The sea surface began to freeze at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ice Age. The thick plain spread and expanded at a speed of hundreds of meters per second, and in a blink of an eye it spread to the vicinity of the Shenlong. A layer of water barrier emerged from the Shenlong, and its surface was still vibrating. When the cold air came into contact with it, it would be quickly shaken off after being infected and frozen. Ah, what a genius idea! The vibration of the water flow generates heat and can also affect the density of the ice, but I am a natural system. Kuzan felt all this with his observation color. He selectively strengthened the ice strength in this direction. As expected, the water barrier, no matter how fast it vibrates, can no longer withstand it, and slowly spreads, eventually trapping the entire Straw Hat group in a thick oval ice shell. Kuzan frowned, feeling that things would not be so simple. Just as he was about to use his observation haki to sense it carefully, bang! The dragon head in the front shot out a high-pressure water flow, penetrating the ice layer several meters thick, and then Sha Chen, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji rushed out of the ice road and faced the enemy head-on, leaving the golden dragon to stay in the ice layer behind. Kuzan felt that something was wrong even more, but before he could use his observation haki to listen carefully, Sha Chen appeared beside him like teleportation, with a layer of spiral water wrapped around his hands, making a harsh buzzing sound. This move is very interesting. I guess this is how they defeated Crocodile. But ice restrains water, and elementalization are not the same thing. He didn't block it at all, just like Crocodile did that day. He condensed an ice saber in his hand and slashed towards Sha Chen's neck, so-called attacking the enemy must save. But Sha Chen didn't dodge at all, and the huge vortex fist fell, smashing Kuzan's chest, causing him to lose half of his body. After feeling the intensity through elementalization, he felt that if his pure flesh body was hit, he would also suffer a minor injury. According to Kizaru, the newcomers nowadays are really getting more and more terrifying. But the ice saber that he swung at Sha Chen's neck had no effect. What made Kuzan incomprehensible was that his ice saber actually cut Sha Chen in an extremely smooth way, but no blood was spilled. He immediately understood something, and the thick-armed color spread up, and the coldness of the fruit also increased significantly. Directly froze Sha Chen's body in half. But after chopping it into pieces, Sha Chen did not appear. He thought of what Bogart had said to him, his face suddenly darkened, and he turned to look at the front line. Sure enough, in addition to Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy, there were several clones of Sha Chen around. If it is not the natural system water fruit, it can be developed to this extent. How can it be done? Kuzan did not dare to delay for half a second, because every second, a Navy soldier would be knocked down and seriously injured, or even lose his life. Second gear rubber siege explosive cannon. Luffy, whose body was red and steaming, stretched his right arm quickly behind him, and then returned with the rebound force of rubber. When he entered the crowd, it expanded instantly, and the power that had been accumulated for a long time was suddenly released. Dozens of Marines around were directly beaten up, and his move was a combo. This is really like the name of his move, Rubber Siege Cannon. The elite Marines holding spears and swords were no match for him. They were injured and flew away when they were touched. It was so terrifying. Only those who knew the 6 styles could barely survive. Of course, this did not include the Iron Block. One sword style Lion Song. Zoro faced Garp's adjutant Bogart again as if by fate. The two of them exchanged dozens of moves in the blink of an eye. The speed of the move was extremely fast, pulling out a series of phantoms. The sound of the swords colliding was continuous, like the roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon, and the sparks were flying like iron trees and silver flowers. Beauty contains a fatal crisis. Is this your courage to face me, Roronoa Zoro, I drawing the sword. 3 swords style ghostly Shira slash. The Asura move, which originally required a long time to charge, could now be easily performed by Zoro. The two collided and stalemated for about half a second. In the end, Zoro was slightly defeated and was knocked away. But this way of fighting, which was constantly knocked away and even pulled back, had been demonstrated many times by Sha Chen. He smoothly adjusted the direction in the air. He stomped his feet hard, making a barely perceptible muffled sound, and the whole person dived forward. I was born in troubled times. Bogart's pupils contracted, and he asked anxiously, Moonstep, where did you learn this? Although the Navy's 6 styles are no longer a secret, even the big pirates in the New World know them more or less. Although they rarely blatantly name them directly with moonsteps, the basic principles are similar. As the saying goes, one person's originality is imitated by thousands of people. The same is true for Sanji's aerial walk in the original work. Zoro didn't care, and focused, I will cut through the dust, 2 swords Rashomon. The sword light was steaming with green flames, and it fell from the air, determined to cut off and burn everything in front of it. Why is Zoro's opponent a vice admiral, while I have to face a colonel? Devil Wind leg cooked meat shot. Sanji's feet were wrapped in red flames, and he kicked with his feet, leaving a series of flame afterimages. In the original work, Even Zoro had to fight with all his strength to deal with the ship-slashing Colonel T. Pen. Facing Sanji at this time, he had no power to fight back. After a few strokes of the sword in his hand, Sanji kicked it away. Several shoe-shaped burn scars were also printed on his chest. Colonel Peng, Blackfoot Sanji, die. The two colonels who were holding Sanji together with T. Peng each slashed at Sanji with double swords and a single sword. Their swordsmanship was also very sharp, but it was far inferior to Zoro, who practiced with him all day. He was also knocked away in 2 moves. Seeing that Sanji was going to deal with those ordinary marines, T. Peng endured the severe pain in his chest and vomited blood in his mouth, and opened his arms to block Sanji. No, you can't go over. Tisk. It must be said that he was very courageous. Sanji flicked the cigarette butt in his hand, bang. A small pit was blown out under his feet. When he appeared again, he had come to T. Peng, and then a rough crush from top to bottom. The left half of Colonel T. Peng's shoulder was ruthlessly smashed, completely depriving him of the fighting power. In fact, Sanji could choose his head. Peng. The eyes of the fighting partners around him suddenly turned red. After all, the scene of the opponent's body being stained with blood in an instant was too terrifying. They rushed towards Sanji fearlessly without thinking. Sanji's expression calmed down instead. He kicked a kid with 1 foot, and occasionally he could take some time to light a cigarette. He was very comfortable. At this time, Zoro was already covered with wounds by Bolt, but he was still able to hold him firmly. To be honest, except for the wounds, the intensity of his sparring with Sha Chen was not weak at all. It's not that Zoro is very strong, but Bogart is letting him go. After all, compared to Zoro, the other two are difficult to deal with. Just leave it to the people behind. Kuzan was trapped by the marines around him. He couldn't exert the peak combat power of the admiral level. In a short period of time, although he successfully wiped out more than a dozen clones of Sha Chen, he also made him more and more angry, who restrained who. Shaved again to Sha Chen. As before, the hockey, the army's ice blade, and the intense coldness of the ice fruit were released at the same time, and they had to be controlled within a certain range, otherwise the marines beside him would be accidentally injured. But this time, Sha Chen in front of him did not choose to bear it hard. He ran out of Kuzan's attack range in a flash. Kuzan was not angry but happy, his eyes were shining, and he finally caught you. He stared at him with his observation hockey. He had heard from Garp and had seen it himself. The means used by the other party to interfere with his observation hockey were very sophisticated, but it was a pity that he could not learn it. After all, the ice fruit he developed focused on shaping an extremely fast freezing. That's it, Sha Chen, ice cube violent pheasant beak. A huge bird's beak fell from the air and hit Sha Chen fiercely. Sha Chen dodged again, and it seemed that there was no effect. But the moment he landed, a large number of ice spikes burst out, and in an instant, the surrounding air was completely frozen. Several arc-shaped ice walls rumbled up from the ground, surrounding the two in a translucent ice ball. It released terrifying ice energy all the time. Sha Chen could clearly feel that even if he briefly integrated the high-temperature skill, the difficulty of controlling the water flow was also increasing rapidly. The high temperature is only LV1. Kuzan, who is more than 2 meters tall, walked out of the thick white ice fog. Half of his body has turned into solid ice. He looks extremely cold. Ah, Sha Chen, if you are willing to surrender and remove Mr. Garp's ability, then you are worthy of being the Admiral of the Navy. There is still a little gap between you and me now, but why do you think you can defeat me this time? Sha Chen said fearlessly, just the two of you. Kuzan said expressionlessly, ah, your ability is indeed very tricky, but your companions are not so good. At the same time, a cool female voice came from outside, one sword flow golden by Luo slash. Sha Chen's eyes twitched, and a light golden flying slash slid past the east side of the ice ball, cutting a large piece of ice surface, and that direction was the golden dragon. The entire oval ice cover, along with the golden dragon, turned into colorful ice fragments. Lord Taotu, so handsome. Lord Taotu, so awesome. Hey, Taotu, you're trying too hard. Taotu, marry me. It seems like something suspicious has sneaked in. Never mind, it doesn't matter. No, this is also fake. You've all been fooled by the villain Sha Chen. Taotu's cool voice sounded. What? Everyone looked over, and sure enough, there was nothing but colorful broken ice, not even blood or wood chips, it was already fake. This means that from the beginning, the people who were not dispatched on the Golden Dragon were all forged by Sha Chen. Many people have also fought with Sha Chen's water clones in person, so it's easy to figure out the reason. With the arrival of Taotu and Chatten, Sanji, Luffy, and Zoro quickly fell into a disadvantage, in danger, and were about to be caught. Back to the ice ball. Ah, brother, even Bogart and I were fooled by you. As soon as Aokiji finished speaking, he appeared behind Sha Chen again, swinging his knife and slashing without mercy. Sha Chen just smiled at him, and the whole person was frozen into an ice block. Aokiji's pupils shrank, when, my observation haki has been locking on him. Since it was replaced again without knowing it, or was this clone fake from the beginning, broken? He quickly broke through the ice wall and happened to see several Sha Chen clones emerging from the ice surface and appearing in front of Sanji, Zoro and Luffy, turning directly into water to wrap them, and then the ice surface under everyone's feet began to tremble violently. Dozens of huge rapids rushed out from the sea, and the sharp water knives easily cut the ice surface that was dozens of meters thick. Looking at the scene again, except for Sha Chen, Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy had disappeared with the high-pressure rapids. Water escape 100 water breaking wave technique. Under his control, the water blades of wind and rain intersected with each other, and the ice surface of nearly 1,000 meters in radius was cut into hundreds of irregular pieces of different sizes. The attack was too sudden, and a large number of marines fell into the water. Aokiji hurriedly stopped the plan to freeze them, because if he was not careful, he might freeze them to death, and the enemy was still there. One sword flow women's slash. Taotu seized the opportunity to flash behind Sha Chen and slashed with a sword, but was dodged by Sha Chen's shadow-following move, and took the opportunity to wrap around her body like a swimming snake. Mua, it smells so good. Then Sha Chen kissed Taotu's face in full view of everyone, and then flashed and appeared in a long distance. Sha Chen called this move water escape stealing fragrance. No, this move was inspired by the second generation's Flying Thunder God technique, which combines the color of observation and elementalization, and teleports in space, making it easy to master. At this time, Taotu barely reacted. Die for me, whale fall. A large number of golden flying slashes flew towards Sha Chen, big and small, like a violent storm. But Sha Chen's figure kept appearing at random places on the battlefield, without any moving track, as if he could really teleport. In the end, there was no other way. Even Ching Pheasant and others couldn't take action directly. What was going on with Sha Chen's endless abilities? What kind of fruit ability is he? Even the superhuman type can actually perform the elementalization of the natural type. This is quite unreasonable. At least it has touched upon the knowledge blind spots of everyone including Aokiji. Taotu was so angry that her chest was rising and falling, and she was constantly bloated. There were layers of blue veins on Jinbeluo's arm that she was holding in her hand. The T-dolphin who came with her was kneeling on the ice in despair. Ever since Taotu was forcefully kissed by Sha Chen, he felt as if the sky had fallen. It's hard to imagine that he would be like this on such an important occasion. He is obviously a very persistent man who has proposed to Taotu 100,101 times without giving up. Unable to bear this blow. Okay, now I can't do anything to you, and you can't do anything to me, so it's time for us to disperse. Also, is the flame photographer here? Sha Chen stood on an icicle and asked indifferently. The expressions of everyone in the Han army slowly turned ugly. Sha Chen was right. Even if they turned on the observation color, there was nothing they could do about Sha Chen. This kind of space system ability was too illegal. It must be fought with the space system. But what puzzles most people is, what does Sha Chen mean by asking this? Laugh at them. 3 seconds passed. Still missing the flaming photographer who always forgot to open the back cover of his camera, Sha Chen clasped his hands together. A huge dragon head emerged from the sea water, holding him up slowly, and then 8 more water dragons appeared, surrounding him. Someone can take a picture for me. I'll use this one for my wanted posters from now on. Allah, Sha Chen, do you really think no one can catch you? Ching Ji's voice came from far away, and when the words fell, he was already taking air steps and appeared directly in front of Sha Chen. He is indeed not good at dealing with enemies with spatial abilities and speed, but with his general level strength, he is already standing at the top of this ocean. The right fist was wrapped in a thick layer of spiral ice energy and hit Sha Chen's head directly. Wait a minute, what will happen to your hair if the water evaporates rapidly? Sha Chen said. Qing Pheasant thought that Sha Chen was definitely not aimless. When Sha Chen's belly was still 1 meter away from the heavy ice energy, he stopped abruptly. It will explode. Bang! As his voice fell, a piece of ordinary ice exploded. This change came very suddenly. Some sailors near him were affected and suffered a large number of wounds, but they were all minor injuries. Qing Pheasant's expression slightly condensed. What's going on? Could it be? As expected of a general, you look like you have already thought of it. Do you think these dark clouds are just to gather water? Water is everywhere on the sea. Why should I have to do this? Guess, I was beaten by you before. Will it explode if you suck in the water in your stomach? Sha Chen's voice was not loud, but it reached the ears of the senior generals and officers very clearly. Their faces changed wildly, and they quickly looked at themselves with the color of their knowledge. But nothing can be found. After all, seeing, hearing, and color are not the consciousness of the world of cultivation. Even Qingzi's oral habit disappeared, but he didn't dare to gamble. If Sakazuki was here, he might kill him without hesitation. He pursues absolute justice, and as long as he can kill Sha Chen, he will pay any price. So 1 minute later, Sha Chen took a few beautiful posing photos and then prepared to leave with satisfaction, riding the water dragon, feeling so free and comfortable. By the way, little Taozi, the water dragon at Sha Chen's feet stopped, dragging him around to face everyone. Kuzan didn't understand who he was calling for a moment, until he noticed that Sha Chen's eyes fell on Taotu, whose face was already ashen. Now I understand. But Xiao Taozi, oh my god, where did Sha Chen get the courage? Well, he is very powerful, he has the final say, and he doesn't know if Sha Chen has planted steam bombs in their bodies. This ability is really weird. Taotu's fists clenched loudly, but she could only grit her teeth and endure the humiliation. Say, these words were squeezed out from between his teeth. Go back and wash off the tattoo. What do girls do with tattoos? Sha Chen stretched out his index finger and pointed at Taotu's left thigh. Under the public gaze, even Taotu felt his face heat up. What does it have to do with you? One sword style, whale falling slash. The overwhelming flying slashes appeared again, and her great swordsman's strength was undoubtedly revealed, but Sha Chen just teleported and appeared in front of the attacker. Out of the range of attack, he left with a loud laugh, and no one dared to chase him. I have to say that this is quite frustrating, but there is no way, he is controlled by others, and there is nothing he can do. Marine Headquarters, Marineford, Marshal's Office. After receiving the information sent back by Aokiji on the front line, the Chief Staff Crane and the current Navy Marshal Sengoku were silent for a long time. Dragon King. Crane, what did you say? Sengoku was stunned. Didn't he want to change his title? Then use Dragon King. Dragon, what do you mean? Isn't Kaido of the Beast's pirates looking for death every day? Then let him do it. Crane smiled slightly. It's a good idea, but I didn't expect that Sha Chen actually has the strength of a quasi-admiral, and according to Kuzan, the other party did not fully exert his full strength, especially his last steam explosion, which is too dangerous. If we deal with him in the future, we can't send out a large-scale pursuit force. Crane continued to analyze. Sha Chen enters the new world, let Kizaru deal with it. Zhongguo rubbed his eyebrows, handed the photo sent back from the front line to the hungry goat next to him, and watched it swallow it bit by bit. They are the Navy, how can they say whatever Sha Chen says? They also have to save face. That's fine, but unfortunately there are too few space-related abilities. Until now, we can't determine what Sha Chen's fruit ability is. So his bounty is set at 1 billion Baileys. 1 billion, a bit less, Crane said. It's already a lot in paradise, let's talk about it when we get to the new world, and besides, Zhongguo took a deep breath, his body swelled and dyed with a layer of golden light, Monkey D. Garp, what face do you have left to sleep here? His voice mixed with the shock wave, hit Garp heavily, the snot bubble on Garp's red nose burst, woke up, and the whole person had hit the wall. Somewhat confused, he scratched his long blue hair. Is dinner ready? You fool, if it weren't for your grandson Luffy, how could Sha Chen have joined the pirates? Take my punch, Buddha shockwave. Although the two made a lot of noise, causing the entire floor of the building to shake, as the headquarters of the Navy, the building quality is excellent, and ordinary earthquakes of magnitude 8 or 9 cannot cause the headquarters buildings to collapse. The two of them were just playing around, so naturally they would not really cause irreparable damage to the Navy headquarters. All of this costs money, and the senior officials on this floor said that it was completely fine and they were used to it. Defeat the Navy's elite and obtain 5 collection times. Sha Chen found an opportunity and returned to the Golden Dragon. They were traveling thousands of meters in the sky. The huge ship was floating on a thin layer of clouds, but there was no sign of falling, and it was extremely easy. This surprised Nami and others, and at the same time, they felt a sense of security. She had long wanted to ask Sha Chen if he could fly in the sky all the time. Flying in the sky is not only fast, but also ignores most risks. Only Robin understands how terrifying it is to display such an ability that can be maintained normally. She didn't expect that the pirate group she was half forced to join would be so full of hidden talents. Although she didn't participate in the battle before, she learned about the battle situation below through Usopp's broadcast at an altitude of thousands of meters. Originally, seeing Sanji, Luffy, and Zoro with wounds of all sizes on their bodies, which were terrible and scary, she thought Sha Chen was also seriously injured and was very worried. Sha Chen came back on the cloud, and at that moment, his whole body was emitting golden light. Well, it was mainly because he came back against the direction of the sun. Chopper, how are the three of them? Vice Captain, Zoro is the most seriously injured, Captain Luffy is exhausted, Sanji is fine, and he recovers the fastest. Chopper replied without raising his head. Not bad, their strength has been verified this time, and there will be a period of rapid improvement later. Don't be idle, move them to the medical room first. Sha Chen was a little speechless, and they reacted after looking at everyone. In fact, it's not that they didn't expect it, but they were waiting here to see how Sha Chen was doing. Seeing that Sha Chen didn't even have skin injuries, they were relieved. In addition, this is thousands of meters high. Once Sha Chen was injured, it is hard to imagine what kind of pace they would become if they fell down. Robin took over, crossed his hands, and arms grew on the floor, and the three of them were transported to the medical room. Usopp didn't dare to be idle, and ran to help. Sha Chen casually dealt with Nami for a few words, took a deep look at Robin, and went to rest. As for Marianu, she didn't get on the ship. In fact, Luffy had already accepted her during that time, but this guy's dream was to become a painter. In some aspects, his personality was really paranoid. However, in Sha Chen's view, the other party simply didn't want to get himself into trouble, and just wanted to have a place to drink tea and paint quietly. Thinking that the agreement between him and Marianu had been reached, because his skills had added a color hint, it was a pity that he could only do this, so he left the other party in Alabasta and became a royal painter. In fact, when Sha Chen met her in the small garden, he wanted to pull Marianu on board. If the other party's ability was well developed, it might create a miracle. If combined with a hypnotic ability fruit, she might become a nightmare-like existence. Unfortunately, the salted fish is still a salted fish after turning it over again. What else can Sha Chen do? I can only respect her choice. Although he has killed many people along the way and has a lot of murderous nature, it does not mean that he is a person who kills indiscriminately. For Sha Chen, he has always adhered to a bottom line until now, and those he killed are all guilty and deserving of death. Including but not limited to Sand Crocodile. That's right, Sha Chen stayed in Alabasta during this period, and Cobra couldn't hand him over. Instead, he had to find a way to keep him still there, although this had long been seen through by the Navy and the world government. But it is enough to use the title of the 7 warlords of the sea to deter those ordinary pirates. However, the evil deeds done by the 7 warlords of the sea and Baroque Studio were also exposed, resulting in Sand Crocodile, the peerless hero who would have been brilliant, dying of illness in the dungeon. I have to say that fate is unpredictable, it's really a pity. After this battle, Sha Chen fully realized his awesomeness. He can now say without hesitation that he has the combat power of the admiral level. Of course, even if he has the combat power and can perform perfectly, and can defeat people like Aokiji, Kizaru, and Sakazuki in a one-on-one duel, there is still a long way to go. At least he has to improve his armament haki to a more advanced level. Although it is already level 2, it is only equivalent to stepping into the surface of level 2. But he has already touched the threshold of Ryuzakura, and I think he will be able to master it before the war on the top. And Ryuzakura is the advanced application of armament haki, just like what Kukaros used that day, like an invisible armor. Wait a minute, why did I see the gray gas at the beginning? Sha Chen was stunned, and thought that this might be the difference between the real world and the anime world. After all, someone said that haki is you can't see it. Although this statement is ridiculous, if it is true, how did Black Arm Zephyr and Iron Fist Garp come from? Could it be that they used materials to color themselves before fighting? That's too ridiculous. So Sha Chen would rather believe that haki is a person's idealistic energy, just like Zoro's ghost energy. As long as he improves his ability in this aspect, Aokiji will not be Sha Chen's opponent, because in other aspects, Sha Chen can be said to be a crushing existence. Speed is comparable to teleportation. Strength, probably comparable to 2 Aokiji, note that it is twice. Recovery ability, this is hard to say. Anyway, Sha Chen has been maintaining a rain cloud of nearly 10 kilometers, more than 20 water clones, and Mary's light fruit. From the later battle to now, his physical strength has recovered to 80%. Outrageous, right, but this is also normal. After all, Sha Chen's physical attribute has reached 2,884.3 points at this time. According to the plugin, this physical level is equivalent to 2,884.3 times that of ordinary people. If the recovery speed is weak, it is garbage. In addition, except for the power of controlling water, Sha Chen did not show so obvious in other aspects. In fact, with Sha Chen's current situation, if he fights hard, he can also send Aokiji away in a half-crippled state. Use high-temperature skills to break the opponent's ice defense, use arm to restrict him, and then merge the explosive power and armed color into his body. It's strange that Aokiji can survive. However, Sha Chen has a good impression of Aokiji. It is indeed because of the filter. After all, he is half a benefactor of Robin. Although Robin may not thank him, after all, in Robin's eyes, the other party is the murderer who destroyed O'Hara and killed her only giant friend, Zoro, with his own hands. The cause and effect between the two of them is really tangled like a mess. Sha Chen took a short rest, and his physical strength was fully restored. Then he began to practice armament haki, trying to master the skills of Ryuzakura as soon as possible. The efficiency of flying in the sky is far better than that of flying underground. Sha Chen, we need supplies. From here, we can enter the range of Gaia Island, where we can store the magnetic force to the next island. Nami ran to Sha Chen, who was practicing haki, and said, "They have been flying in the air for 3 days, and Sha Chen did not deliberately speed up. After all, Luffy and the other 3 were seriously injured, so it would be better to give them more time to rest. In fact, the distance from Alabasta to Gaia Island is not far. If you sail at full speed, you will arrive in 2 days. What's more, flying in the air, he thinks the next copy is Sky Island, and then throw Sanji and the others up. See if they can stimulate their observation haki in a crisis. Of course, they also have to limit their strength. Otherwise, even Sanji, the weakest of the 3, can kick the 4 priests half to death. As for the others, they just have to be soy sauce this time. Take a look at the record pointer," Sha Chen reminded. "They got a lot of permanent pointers in the small garden, so Nami hasn't used the low-end stuff like the record pointer for a while." "What's the problem?" Nami opened a secret cabinet next to the rudder, which contained a series of permanent pointers. But when he saw the record pointer in the bottom corner, his eyes widened. He took it out and compared it carefully. The pointer was indeed pointing to the sky. But they were at 3,000 meters in the sky, but there didn't seem to be any islands nearby. Moreover, islands would be in the air. Isn't this nonsense? What's going on? Go up and take a look, Sha Chen said with a smile. Then, driven by his ability, the golden dragon rushed straight to a height of 10,000 meters like taking an elevator. Soon they came to the bottom of the White Sea. There were endless thick white clouds around them, but there were still no islands around. Nami's face was more confused, and other crew members who noticed the movement also came out. Except for Usopp, Chopper, and Luffy, who were shouting at the bow. What did they see suddenly? Sha Chen, go over there. Hold on tight, we're going up the slope. After Sha Chen reminded them, a steam stream suddenly exploded at the rear of the ship, and the golden dragon pierced through the bottom of the white sea like an arrow. They plunged into the viscous substance that looked like seawater, and Luffy and Chopper, who were standing at the front, were instantly swept by a sense of powerlessness. No strength, is this seawater? The two fell weakly to both sides of the ship, and were about to fall into the white sea. Sha Chen manipulated the water barrier to cover the ship and pull Luffy and Chopper back. How can there be a sea in the sky? Nami could not hide the shock on her face. I understand the principle of atmospheric circulation, but there shouldn't be a sea in the sky. How can clouds carry such weight? Sky Island, I have heard of it when I traveled around the world before, but I was not sure before. Now, Robin said, it can be confirmed. This is not a fantasy in wild history, but there are few books with relevant records. It seems that this Sky Island is also very rare in the sea. That's right, how can ordinary ships reach an altitude of 10,000 meters? Zoro and Sanji, who were wrapped in thick bandages, moved their hands and feet. They also felt weak and exhausted. Although they are not fully recovered now, their physical fitness is strong and they are now at the level of little monsters. The general environment will not have such a bad effect on their bodies. Next, I will take you to see the world. Don't rush to recover. This level is just right now. Sha Chen said with a smile, and then unfolded the color of seeing and hearing, magnetic field sensing, and turned on. Its range of observation Haki expanded rapidly, but the farther it was, the blurrier the image it sensed, until it finally disappeared. But soon a picture suddenly became clear. It was an island, Arpayado. Compared with the small islands on the Grand Line, the area of the island is not very large, and it is not complete, and the magnetic field on it is very chaotic. But after being captured by Sha Chen, the picture became clearer and clearer. Although it did not reach the kind of imaging effect that the close-range observation Haki showed every detail, it was enough to point Sha Chen. This is the special effect of the observation Haki fused with the magnetic field effect. Magnetic materials will give Sha Chen enough attraction, and he can also distinguish different materials by the difference in the magnetism of the materials. The effect is not very outstanding. After all, Sha Chen was only level 1 when he fused it. But this also gives his observation Haki a special attribute. If it is well developed, in terms of actual effect, it may not be inferior to the perception infection observation Haki of the fish-man Princess Otahime, or categories for seeing the future. Thinking of Otahime, it is inevitable to think of Neptune, not the great white star. The old perverts all go to face the wall, and then thinking of their size difference, I have to say that nature is really a wonderful creation. By the way, the Shandia warrior tribe on Sky Island also has a little girl Aisha who is born with observation Haki, and her observation Haki is also born with a super wide range. Sometimes people's talents are really outrageous. After determining the target, the ship directly shuttled through the seawater to avoid unnecessary obstacles. Occasionally, it would encounter sea beasts unique to the White Sea. Sha Chen caught a few of them casually. Everyone was very interested. They were big, but surprisingly light, especially Sanji, who couldn't wait to run into the kitchen with a big lobster. When they arrived at the edge of the island, Sanji's lobster three-way meal was also ready, and the ship emerged from the White Sea. It docked at the edge of Arpado Island. You have about 10 minutes to adapt to the environment of Sky Island, and then go on an adventure. Sha Chen said, tearing off a piece of lobster meat, a specialty of Sky Island, the size of a human head. Everyone had already sensed Sha Chen's abnormality. He seemed to know something, but he just didn't say it. But those who knew Sha Chen's character didn't ask any more questions, and Luffy and others were even more excited. Except for Usopp, he had a terminal illness that prevented him from going to the island, so he simply had a lobster feast. Under Sha Chen's arrangement, Sanji, Zoro, Luffy, Chopper, Usopp, and Robin entered the island from different directions. Sha Chen left a message to watch the boat, and took Nami into the air, heading towards the giant vines in the center of the island. If it was a coincidence, Enelu should be there, but if not, it didn't matter. Anyway, his observation Haki was not weak, although it could not accurately cover the entire Sky Island and the nearby Arpayard. But it was enough to deal with one Enelu. Sha Chen, where are we going? And who were you talking to just now? See if I can strengthen you. You can't keep up with everyone's progress now. Sha Chen put his arm around Nami's waist and said, okay, don't ask too much, just watch. Nami could only swallow her words. She knew that Sha Chen would not harm her. She was even a little touched. She was the only one on the whole ship who had this qualification. As for Robin, step aside. Sha Chen has been very honest these days and has always treated Robin with courtesy. Nami also knows the reason. He said that Robin is a very rare talent in the world who can read ancient characters. Even in the perception of the outside world, she is the only one in the world who can read this kind of text. This talent deserves the courtesy of their entire group. If Luffy wants to become the Pirate King, he must have such a person to help. Nami is not ignorant, so he gets along well with Robin. On the way to the central vine, Sha Chen's observation haki swept over 5 people of different heights, including a ball, a jar, and a pole. They led more than 100 white-clothed divine soldiers and passed through from below. These should be the so-called 4 great priests and the chief of divine soldiers. So, Enel must be in his golden palace. In fact, when Sha Chen just arrived at the edge of the towering vine, Nami was looking up in amazement, and a thick white thunder fell from the sky and hit Sha Chen directly. Sha Chen did not even dodge, but summoned a water shield for defense. Bang! The water shield caused a slight ripple, but it was intact, and the lightning was dispersed. The god who controls water. Big earlobe, Enel appeared on a tree branch 20 meters away from Sha Chen with a dazzling silver electric light, naked upper body, with 4 small drums on his back. Sha Chen covered the past with his observation haki, and a more detailed picture emerged in his mind. This thing was really inserted into the body. Although it can be elementalized and it is not really inserted into the flesh, it is not comfortable. This guy is probably an M. Although this is not related to me, you should know that most devil fruits will have a certain impact on the eater after eating. If Nami also, wait a minute, the M Nami in this direction seems to be quite interesting. Slurp. I am asking you a question, you little gods, why do you offend my domain? Seeing that Sha Chen still didn't reply, Enel's face was filled with anger. In his opinion, his lightning could restrain water. Although the opponent blocked his lightning attack with a water shield, it was just a casual attack. Of course, it is undeniable that the previous invaders would lose most of their combat effectiveness on the spot, or even be killed directly, facing this move. Discharge 10 million volts. Without saying a word, Enel shot out another beam of lightning in his hand. Nami instinctively hid behind Sha Chen. A closed water shield wrapped the two of them. Before the lightning touched the surface of the water wall, it was blocked by a light gray barrier. This is the second stage of domineering, invisible armor, which is a way of using Ryuo. But this stalemate lasted less than 3 seconds, and the water barrier was broken, falling directly onto the water, and setting off layers of ripples. However, even though Enel increased the discharge efficiency from 10 million volts to 30 million volts, except for more ripples, Sha Chen's thin water shield could not be broken. This was something Enel had never encountered before. He understood the difficulty of the person in front of him, and seeing Sha Chen's calm look, Enel thought for a moment and put away the thunder in his hand. Who is the god below? Tell me your name. I am the god of thunder, the controller of lightning, the king of the sky, the heir of the boundless earth, God Enel. Accompanying his words, a series of low drum sounds and the crackling sounds of thunder and lightning sounded behind him, making his words more solemn and solemn, especially the lightning special effects bursting from his body, which made his deterrence plus 9.9. Sha Chen was silent. Did this guy have so many dramas in the original book? Maybe the anime portrayed it too one-sidedly. After all, no matter from which angle you look at it, this Enel is very arrogant, and a little arrogant. This is understandable. After all, he is just a country bumpkin. Sky Island sounds high and mighty. But in fact, compared with the numerous islands on the sea like stars and the various civilizations as bright as summer flowers, the development of civilization on Sky Island has long been stagnant, plus its pitiful number, excluding the few disguised ones of the Golden Lion. They are indeed country bumpkins. Not to mention the guy in front of him who calls himself a god. So Sha Chen not only ignored him, but also told Nami not to learn from him in the future, and to be a serious electric girl is enough. Nami was already shocked by Enel's gorgeous attack, but in her heart, she felt that this power was very compatible with her, and according to Sha Chen's popularization just now, this is a natural thunder fruit. Sha Chen also possesses most of the abilities of the nature water fruit. When the two of them are combined, my God, is there a better match than them? So she looked at Enelu as if she had seen a top treasure. Her face was full of, I want it, I want it. Enelu's eyes were red with stimulation from Sha Chen's actions. Without saying a word, he activated the thunder drum behind him, released a giant thunder bird, and swooped down. At this time, Enelu's attack intensity had risen to 70 million volts. It sounds terrible, and it is actually terrible. Sha Chen had to thicken the water barrier by one layer, and then created a very elastic water sofa, sitting with Nami to watch this gorgeous thunder scene. But because of the fusion of domineering and water control ability, his physical and mental fitness is also constantly consumed. Now if it is quantified by numerical values, when being attacked, he consumes 15 per second and recovers 6. When not being attacked, the consumption is 0.5 per second, and the recovery speed is 12 per second. Of course, this quantification is definitely not accurate, it is only for Enel's current situation. In short, Enel's attack, which is enough to kill a large number of people at will, is just a scratch for Sha Chen. I don't know if it is due to the influence of the thunder fruit, or Enel himself is a particularly irritable person. He saw that his advanced moves, Thunderbird, Thunder Beast, and Thunder Dragon, were no longer able to do anything. Sha Chen's thin water shield, like a punishment from heaven, was in front of him. He made up his mind and used all his strength to activate the fruit, increasing the attack intensity to 200 million volts, making a huge leap. 200 million volts Thor. His body suddenly enlarged and turned into a silver-white thunder god giant. This is his ultimate secret. Only the roar of thunder is left between heaven and earth. He punched Sha Chen's water shield heavily, and the surrounding grass and trees within a radius of hundreds of meters were directly vaporized by the high temperature carried by the thunder, leaving a charred ground. Finally, Enelu controlled the thunder god to punch the water shield heavily, but it was not as soft as he imagined. He felt that his fists hit a piece of steel. A sharp pain surged into his mind. He was confused for a moment. Since eating the mysterious fruit, he has not felt pain for many years. He even forgot it and instinctively felt something was wrong. However, it was too late to stop at this time. The layer of water shield wrapped around Sha Chen suddenly expanded. It broke, but it broke in the opposite direction. Gathering in the air, it formed a huge hand with clear palm prints, which grabbed him. Enelu's huge thunder god was like a little chicken in front of the big hand. Enelu was panicked and kept urging the upper limit of the discharge. The layer of water close to him was burned and rolled continuously. But that was all, because the big hand seemed to be made of steel, and no matter how he rushed and resisted, it remained motionless, and the space for movement continued to shrink. Enelu had no choice but to cancel his ability and wanted to fly out quickly with the advantage of his body size, but at that moment, the palm, which had a lot of space, suddenly gathered and turned into a huge water ball, trapping him firmly inside. Enelu lost his resistance at the first moment, but he did not faint. Defeat the important plot character Enelu and get 25 collection times. Sha Chen thought about it and still stopped the plan to sprinkle seastone powder into it. This water flow was directly converted by his physical strength, and there must be no seastone components in it. This was considering the subsequent collection work, and he didn't want to increase the difficulty for himself. In addition, this was also a gamble. If the fruit could not be guessed, and only the ability was collected, it would not be fun. I had boasted a little before. If the fruit could not be obtained, then we can only hope for the next upgrade of the God-level collection technique. Sha Chen is 70% sure that the plugin will be completely transformed in the next upgrade. Since the new pet column appeared, Mary's physical strength is very low, so using the ability requires consuming the physical and mental strength of the owner. This phenomenon reversely illustrates the possibility of giving the ability to others in reverse. But I have only collected 230 times now, and according to the rules, I need more than 1,000 times. Fortunately, there is still plenty of time and I am not in a hurry. I did not promise Nami when I would give her the ability. The thunder fruit did not work here, so I went to Big Mom and collected his soul fruit ability, and made a thunder cloud for Nami to use first, which is also possible for a transition. Since confirming that he has the combat power of the Admiral level, Sha Chen's vision has been boundlessly broadened. The plan that needed careful consideration before is no longer a problem in front of him. There is no doubt that the trip to Alabasta brought about earth-shaking changes to Sha Chen. To some extent, Sha Chen was also a little caught off guard by his sudden strength. He controlled the logistics in the water ball and choked Enel to death. Sha Chen motioned Nami to stay aside, as the following scene was not suitable for her to watch. Nami laughed obediently. Sha Chen threw a 10-hit combo directly at Enel. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a total of 160 points of physical fitness, 70 points of spirit, Thor's trousers, Arc Proverbs, Thor's golden earrings, Thor's golden bracelet, and 2 apples. So weak, Sha Chen showed contempt. Don't think that he just took down Enel with ease without much effort, and Enel fought like a lunatic. But if it wasn't Sha Chen who was facing him and he wasn't domineering, he would still be suppressed by Enel. After all, the Thunder Fruit is definitely the top one even in the natural system. If you don't look at the user, just look at the fruit ability. According to all the current information, the Thunder Fruit is definitely the boss of the natural fruit. In addition, Sha Chen looked calm just now, but in fact, this was also the confidence brought to him by his strength. On the other hand, he was also paralyzing Enel. After all, the opponent's face had undergone a leapfrog transformation under the blessing of the Thunder Fruit. Coupled with his lightning speed, Sha Chen was confident that he could take him down. After all, his pseudo-flying Thunder God technique was not fake. But that would consume more mental and physical energy. What's the point? It would be better to have a hardy, mage-based battle. Unfortunately, Sha Chen had high hopes for Enel, but this guy was not up to the task and couldn't even break his mage shield. What else could he do? Recovering his thoughts, back to the point. The physical fitness is just this low. Rubbish. Come again. Collect 10 times in a row. Collecting successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 110 points of physical fitness, 50 points of spirit, Thor's golden ring, Thor's golden foot ring, Thor's thunder drum, Thor's golden trident, and observation hockey LV1. Detected the thunder drum, Thor's golden trident, synthesis suit, Thor's armor, special effects, one-click change, thunder storage, discharge, majesty. 4 characteristics. Then he blinked hard, staring at the Thor suit that was freely assembled in front of him, thinking for a moment, this thing has no top, can it be worn out? H-E-2-E, color rogue plugin. Sha Chen cursed in his heart, while carefully putting this suit in the most conspicuous position in the backpack, and then the corners of his mouth could not help but bend up. A beautiful life was madly approaching him. After that, another 10-game combo. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a total of 30 points of physical fitness, 40 points of spirit, the incomplete natural system Thunder Fruit, the Gamma Pyrobroin Factor, Enel's navigation skill LV1, the Proverbs maintenance guide, the Proverbs design, and some gold. Sha Chen's eyes lit up. Finally a big product was produced, but after noticing the few words above, he was suddenly silent again. Is this considered a success or a failure? But looking at the dead Enel, Sha Chen knew that things had come to this point and there was no other way. He prayed to the gods in the sky, and then used his consciousness to contact these virtual light groups. The first one was this incomplete natural system Thunder Fruit, which showed some very vague information, controlling thunder, lightning elementalization, high temperature, high pressure, electric speed, current induction. There are more behind, but it is no longer clear. This. Sha Chen was stunned and re-examined it. The information he just sensed was correct. Is this successful? Even so, the expression on his face was still so unbelievable. In fact, according to some previous research, he did succeed. It must be said that fate still favors him. If Sha Chen uses his mind to sense the things collected by the God-level collection technique, he can sense some information. But this information is not so perfect, and sometimes nothing can be sensed. This also depends on probability. But the problem is, why is this thing shown by the God-level collection technique incomplete? What is missing? And Sha Chen also discovered a key point, that is, the information just sensed was actually mastered by Enelu. Is there some connection between them? Recalling the candle fruit, imitation fruit, and incomplete sand fruit he obtained, when sensing, the information that appeared was indeed the ability characteristics displayed by the previous adapter, except that there was an additional curse of the sea. Well, the sand fruit can only sense the curse of the sea. There are others, but they can no longer be sensed. This Enelu should understand the restraint of seastone on him. Of course, there are very few complete seastones on Sky Island. The White Sea and island clouds are filled with the name of pyrobroin factor, which is a major component of seastone. It is also because of it that the trees and beasts on Sky Island are so huge and strange. That one is called Gamma Pi also touched the virtual light ball of the robroin factor with his consciousness, and found that the feedback was just its name, and no ability was explained. The only thing that could be felt was that it had an energy that could be integrated into the body. But Sha Chen's intuition told him that this thing was harmful and had no benefit. He didn't understand, but even if this incomplete natural thunder fruit only had the effect of sensing, it was enough. After destroying the corpse, Sha Chen found Nami next to him and took her to the god's courtyard above. Nami didn't ask what happened to Enel, as long as Sha Chen was safe. Then Sha Chen created a coincidence, allowing Nami to find the fruit that looked wilted and full of circles in the woods of Enel's original palace. Sha Chen, look, don't you think this is a devil fruit? Nami excitedly held the devil fruit and came to Sha Chen, showing it to him like a treasure. Sha Chen took it, put on his glasses, and studied it up and down like an old scholar. After thinking for a while, he said, if my guess is right, this should be the thunder fruit, which was used by Enel just now. You should eat it. Really? Nami's eyes became brighter. After taking the devil fruit handed over by Sha Chen, she began to feel uneasy again. She now understands the preciousness of the devil fruit, and there are many people on the ship who are suitable for this fruit. Not to mention Zoro and Sanji, Usopp's strength has increased much more than his own after eating it. But everyone has selfishness. This was discovered by her and Sha Chen together. After hesitating for a few seconds, Nami took a bite, held her breath, and kept biting. Because she heard Robin say it. The taste of the devil fruit is hard to describe. It is the most unpalatable thing in the world. But there is a core point to remember. You must eat it all in one breath and cannot stop, otherwise the ability of the devil fruit may become invalid. Nami remembered this in her heart. She also asked Luffy for confirmation, and Luffy also said that it tasted bad. He swallowed it in one gulp. With Luffy's personality, Nami didn't think he would lie to her. So her wolfing down at this time also shocked Sha Chen. He originally wanted to say that it would be enough to eat one bite. But seeing Nami like this, Sha Chen couldn't bear to interrupt. But while eating, Nami felt something was wrong, and she couldn't help but slow down, and smacked her lips. Strange, this taste is not bad. It's sweet. Nami was very confused, whether she had eaten a fake. Sha Chen understood the reason. It should be because the gamma pyrobroin factor was extracted, which was really interesting. But it was still not suitable to let Nami know, otherwise if she accidentally leaked this information in the future during the battle, it would not be a good thing for her. Nami, maybe it's just that your taste system is different from that of others. I have a friend who described the taste of the devil fruit as eating burnt feces last time. Nami immediately showed a look of disgust on her face. She believed in Sha Chen very much, and he would not lie to her about such a big thing as the devil fruit. But Sha Chen, this friend, is really strange. Why does he know the taste of burnt feces? Could it be that he has eaten it before? Of course, she was a little panicked in her heart. Was there something wrong with her taste system? When she thought of this reason, she felt even more uncomfortable and swallowed the devil fruit in 2 or 3 bites. No matter what, get the ability first. Then she covered her mouth with both hands, pretending to be in great pain, and prepared to make up an excuse to fool Sha Chen, but the next moment her hands pressed directly into her head, and the whole person turned into a ball of white thunder. Natural System Thunder Fruit, absorbed successfully. Chapter 91. Nami was shocked at first, but Sha Chen comforted her and guided her to gradually master the ability of the thunder fruit. This learning speed is amazing. It must be said that Lightning and Nami's talents are really a good match. She seems to be born to be the child of weather who controls lightning. In a short period of time, she was able to skillfully master elementalization, floating, thundercloud summoning, high voltage current, current sensing, enhanced version of observation color, and lightning instant body. Even though Sha Chen had extraordinary experience, he was amazed. This Nami gave him the feeling of a very talented civilian e-sports player who suddenly chose to spend money one day, and then his talent was quickly exchanged. To put it bluntly, with the ability of the Thunder Fruit alone, she can now occupy the top 3 positions in the Straw Hat Pirates. The first is naturally Sha Chen. Enelu can't beat him, let alone Nami. Luffy, she is the user of the Rubber Fruit ability, and she is naturally restrained by Nami, but Nami's Iron Fist restrains Luffy. Zoro, Sanji and the others no longer have to tie for third place occasionally, as they have been suppressed by Nami. Thunder is an attack that combines high pressure, extreme speed and high temperature. With Nami's dual color domineering at this time, it would be a joke if she didn't take the third place in the team's combat power. Of course, after teaching Nami for a while, Sha Chen asked her to do hard labor, melting all the gold that could be found, and then transported it back one by Sha Chen. The big snake, known as the Lord of the Sky, was also made into a reserve food. Sha Chen took a small taste, and the energy content was indeed higher than that of ordinary sea kings, which was not a loss. Of course, Sha Chen got 15 collection times. Enelu really needs to reflect on himself. What level is he almost? This is already the second half of the paradise. Enelu, see you in the next life. After the final search, except for the tiny gold in the gaps, it was really hard to extract. After all, this place had been searched by Enel. Only the golden bell and the calendar text connected to its golden base were left. The rest were melted into gold nuggets, and then Sha Chen used his ability to transport them back to the golden dragon. The golden bell was too big to fit into the small door of the treasure room. Sha Chen didn't want to melt this thing that looked very valuable and had great historical significance, so he could only put it on the third deck as a decoration. In order to prevent the clanging when the ship was sailing, he also reinforced it. Should this thing be sold or kept as a souvenir? 2 seconds later, he decided to keep it as a souvenir. If he wasn't afraid that the collection technique would destroy this thing, Sha Chen would like to see if this thing that carries the memory and will of a civilization can collect interesting things. Of course, the most important thing is that his strength is enough. If he wants to continue to improve, ordinary things are no longer qualified. In addition to continuing to stack physical and mental attributes, Sha Chen now needs more knowledge about combat experience. But for some reason, the probability of collecting this thing is very low. And most of them are useless things, such as the knowledge product with the highest production rate at present, navigation. After a lot of accumulation, Sha Chen's navigation is still level 2. He knows that upgrading from level 2 to level 3 is a huge gap. But along the way, he has absorbed the navigation skills of more than a dozen people. Alas, there is still only this achievement, which is really hard to let go. You must know that his highest skill level is swimming, which is level 4. He did try it, but it didn't have any special effect. Even in the seabed, he can deal with most dangerous situations he encounters with ease. But the problem is that, let alone other things, with his current physical attributes, he can dive 10,000 meters underwater without any problems. So, in his opinion, this swimming level 4 should not be as simple as he imagined. There must be something that he has not developed. Moreover, this skill has a very small direct bonus to his combat power, so Sha Chen has never taken it to heart. This morning, I remembered to take a look. Although its level is very high, it has long been put behind by Sha Chen. After all, I am a devil fruit ability user, so I can't just go swimming casually. It was almost noon, and Sanji and the others didn't come back. It seemed that they listened to what I said and understood that this was a test for them. I don't know if anyone can awaken the observation color by then. Of course, even if it doesn't succeed, it doesn't matter. After all, Nami has mastered the 2-color domineering, and the natural thunder fruit is a great help to the overall strength of the Straw Hat Pirates. This trip to Sky Island can be considered a complete success. He looked at Nami, who was wiping the moss on the gold base, and shook his head. Forget it, let her rest for a while. But this thought just came up. He looked at the suit of Thunder God armor in his backpack, and no one in the group was there. He pulled his tie and felt a little hot inexplicably. He released his observation hockey and confirmed that there was no one else within a range of 10 kilometers. Nami, what's wrong? Nami looked back at Sha Chen, and the light wiping action in her hand did not stop. In fact, Sha Chen could easily handle it with his ability. But Nami said that she had never seen so much gold, and it felt better to clean it this way. Sha Chen just waved at her. Come, I'll show you my big baby. Nami tilted her head in confusion, turned into a flash of lightning and rushed to Sha Chen's side, but she was a little too aggressive, so she grabbed her wrist and stopped. Then Sha Chen pulled Nami into the vice captain's room. The moment she closed the door, Nami's face turned red. She understood what Sha Chen was going to do. Is it too fast? Although it is sometimes difficult to avoid having some related dreams, Nami is really just an adult. Sha Chen's eyes were shining, but his eyes became deeper. He raised Nami's chin with his fingers and let her look at him. Nami's eyes dodged like a deer. At this time, what else can she say? She kissed him gently, and Nami unconsciously hugged Sha Chen. The two did not separate for a long time. Then Sha Chen put his mind on the suit and pressed Nami's back with his other hand. Change. Ka. A thunderclap resounded in the room, and the thunder drum, the golden bracelet, and the golden trident all appeared on Nami in an instant. Sha Chen immediately set his sights on Nami's upper body. Very disappointing. There were things that should be there, and there were things that shouldn't be there. Sha Chen frowned slightly, and understood that this should be the lack of the permanent feature. When he used it on Garp, he replaced all his clothes in an instant. However, the 100 kilo suit that he changed into at the beginning was only the ones on the outside, and now it is the same on Nami. Does the plug-in have an anti-addiction system? What do you think of me, Sha Chen, as a mediocre person? Am I the kind of person who will do anything for beauty? Bah, I will be addicted to it. Nami was also stunned. This change came very abruptly. She looked curiously at the extra decorations on her body, and the 5 small drums with blue thunder patterns that automatically floated behind her. The drum surface was originally a magatama, and there were only 4 of them, but now it has been optimized by the plugin. Nami can feel the subtle connection between her thunder fruit and these things, which directly improves her efficiency in controlling lightning. And this decoration is similar to the one on Enel at that time, but different. For example, the soft pants on her lower body are made of gradient white gauze, like a layer of light moonlight draped over her body. She knew that Sha Chen had many wonderful abilities, but when she noticed Sha Chen's disappointed eyes, she saw through it at a glance. She threw the golden trident in her hand away. She tugged at her slim pink t-shirt. Sha Chen, don't you feel a little hot? At this moment, Sha Chen's eyes seemed to glow, and he nodded heavily. Just as he was about to help Nami cool down, the latter's face froze. She turned into a ball of lightning and appeared next to the golden trident. The next second, she turned into a ball of lightning and rushed out of the window. Sha Chen was stunned for a moment, and then he opened his observation color, and his face instantly turned black. Then, outside the golden dragon, there were scattered thunders, and they became more and more dense. Sha Chen didn't care, but just released the observation color to pay attention to Nami's situation. Before, she had consumed her physical strength, and now she has not fully recovered. Although she is a natural fruit ability user, she has already stood in an invincible position facing these people in the Sky Island copy. But they didn't have sea stone in their hands. In the original book, Weber, the captain of the Shandian people's combat team, always tied sea stone to his palm. Nami's close combat ability is poor, and comparable to his own. Let's keep an eye on it, but judging from the intensity of the attack over there, she is also very angry. Of course, this cannot be ruled out as a result of shame and anger. Sha Chen didn't plan to go over and guard immediately, anyway, he could teleport. He cut off a large piece of snake meat from the remaining Lord of the Sky, and casually picked some seafood products unique to Sky Island. He lit a fire and grilled on the shore in Arpaio. The fragrance soon spread in the jungle. Sha Chen's ears moved slightly. He turned his head and looked at the sky, and soon, a small black dot came from far away and slowly enlarged, and the other party rode a hard-to-describe pink horse with spots all over his body. The person on his back was wearing a full set of metal Western-style armor and holding a knight's spear in his hand. When he saw the Golden Dragon ship parked near Arpaio, he was also surprised. He didn't expect that there was a ship that could reach here without passing through the Gate of Heaven and the Shrimp. After all, Arpaio is the holy land of the Sky Islanders, and its protection is naturally very thorough. Moreover, Enelu has been guarding here in recent years. Are you from Qinghai? Ganfer, flying in the air, pushed open his mask and asked Sha Chen. I don't like others looking down on me, Sha Chen said in a flat tone. A stream of water surged up from the shore and turned into a thick whip, tying Ganfer and the strange horse, Pierre. The latter wanted to dodge, but unfortunately Sha Chen tied up countless devil fruit ability users along the way with this trick. In just 2 moves, Ganfer and Pierre were tied up. Congratulations to the host for defeating the plot characters God Ganfer and Pierre, and obtaining 16 collection times. Especially the latter has recovered his original form, with a paralyzed look, an owl's head, and pink skin, which made Sha Chen feel uncomfortable. The urge to collect it disappeared all of a sudden, and he stirred some mud to cover it. Although this is also a devil fruit, he already despises ordinary stuff. Moreover, Sha Chen can predict what the animal type can step on, which is nothing more than high-speed recovery, but not to mention his current outrageous physical attributes, just the attainment of life return. It is not weaker than most ordinary animal type fruit ability users who have not awakened. If the physical attributes are counted, even most awakened fantasy animal type fruit ability users are far inferior to him. God level collection technique, YYDS. In fact, Sha Chen forgot some details. This Pierre is not eating ordinary animal type, but fantasy animal type Pegasus form. Wait a minute, Qinghai people, don't be impulsive. I am God Ganful, the former god of Sky Island. Sha Chen was in no mood to listen to his nonsense, and directly sealed his mouth with water. Continue to work on the barbecue in his hand. He didn't have too many filters for this Ganful. Ganful was very grateful to the Sky Island people, and the other party was also a very good leader in the history of Sky Island. But Sha Chen still looked down on him. Especially this group of Sky Island people, who took the things they picked up as their own, and fought with the Shandia people for more than 400 years. It really made the latter suffer too much and accumulated too much blood feud. No wonder Weber would not agree to negotiate peace with the Sky Island people. Of course, from the perspective of tradition and rationality, the Sky Island people took Arpaio for themselves because they had a tradition that lasted for hundreds of years. After all, although the structure of this Sky Island is magical, it has no soil and can't grow anything. Without food crops, food and drink would be a problem, so when Arpaio appeared, you can imagine how ecstatic the people of Sky Island were. They thought this is the best gift God has given them. So in the end, this is a battle for survival. The number of people on both sides is decreasing, and they are replaced by one after another. Naturally, they forget the past history. In addition, he feels that this is Oda reflecting some reality. Of course, the impression is not good, and Sha Chen has no intention of killing them, as long as they don't come to provoke him, but when Sha Chen noticed the golden dragon on the side of his ship, he thought of something. He let go of Ganfu's mouth. The latter understood the huge gap in strength between the two and didn't dare to force it casually. You Sky Island people have gold reserves, right? Ganfu was silent. There must be reserves. Although gold is not as valuable to them as Qinghai people, after all, they have no way to exchange it, and at most it is used as a decoration. A handful of gold beans is not as valuable as a handful of bass. But he saw that Sha Chen was a pirate. If he told the truth, would he kill the people of Angel Island? With his ability, and the little girl who used lightning in the distance, they could completely sweep away the entire Angel Island. And he hadn't seen Enelu appear until now. He had a premonition that Enelu, who kicked him off the throne, had met with an accident. The lightning ability of the orange-haired girl probably came from Enelu. Don't want to say it, then. No, this one, Sha Chen. Yes, Lord Sha Chen, we have gold, I can decide, give you all the gold we can find, and hope you can leave here with your crew. Ganfer said in a very sincere tone, with a very humble attitude. Who do you think you are, negotiating with me? Sha Chen said disdainfully, according to the rules of pirates, I'll give you a chance. From now on, 100 kilograms of gold will be exchanged for 1 square kilometer of land for both of you. Land, you mean? Ganfu's eyes were full of surprise. If it was gold for bass, this would be completely feasible. Moreover, 100 kilograms for 1 square kilometer, God bless, there is such a big injustice, good thing, must agree. As a result, he saw Sha Chen pointed to the Sky Island under his feet, the holy land of Arpaio. Sir, no, This is the holy land of our Sky Island, Gonfure hurriedly explained. The next moment he saw Sha Chen casually summoned a huge vortex, which hit the land next to it heavily. In the blink of an eye, nearly 100 square meters of land and trees were instantly crushed, turned into mud and water, merged into the White Sea and disappeared. This made Gonfure feel distressed, but what was even more amazing was the ability that Sha Chen showed. If this move hits their Sky Island town, I don't know how many people will die. Sir, no problem, I'll do it right away, please wait. Gonfure is still strong and ran away. Sha Chen glanced at him and let the strange horse go. You fool. Sha Chen was not targeting Gonfure, but most of the Sky Island people, and he also solved their disputes in his own way. He also killed the Shandian people's bad thoughts about his golden bell in advance. Sure enough, Sha Chen looked into the depths of the jungle without any surprise, and saw Zoro sniffing the fragrance and walking out of the forest. He looked exactly the same as when he left. It's you, Sha Chen. When Zoro saw Sha Chen, the surprise on his face was completely instinctive. If it's not me, then, you don't think it's Sanji, do you? Zoro was silent for a moment. Yes, he really thought it was Sanji. After all, the trees in Arpaia are tall and dense, and it's hard to find the way. Then he saw the Lord of the Sky lying next to the Golden Dragon, with a body length of more than 300 meters, a huge monster. It had been dead for a long time at this time, and Sha Chen was still roasting its meat. It seems that Sha Chen did a lot during this time. He sat down next to the grill, picked up a large piece of roasted crispy snake meat, bit it and said, "My injury has not fully healed. I feel uncomfortable, so I came back. Chopper said that you only have superficial injuries. Well, they need this fighting opportunity more than me. Actually, you are lost." Nonsense, how could I get lost? This island is so big. Sure enough, you are lost. This island covers an area of more than 100 square kilometers. Its smallness is only relative. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you believe I will chop you? Zoro's face flushed and he was angry. Hee. Zoro couldn't stand it anymore, so he drew his sword and did it. Sha Chen was distracted and used 3 things. After the spiritual attribute was improved, this consumption was nothing. Most of his mind was paying attention to Nami, a small part continued to grill, and the rest was controlling the water flow and playing with Zoro. That's right, for Sha Chen now, Zoro's big move does not have a defense break. Of course, he would not let Zoro relax, mainly to stimulate him to awaken the observation haki. So each of his moves was not very harmful, but extremely insulting, such as the inverted bell, the super spiral, the fishing king. He tortured Zoro to death, and even though he was a taciturn person, he cursed at Sha Chen. Sha Chen not only didn't care, but tormented him even more. This guy came back at the wrong time. No, the main thing was to strengthen Zoro's training, and the enemies they would face would become stronger and stronger. Although he already had the combat power of the Admiral level, the second stage of the armed haki was still perfect, especially without awakening the domineering haki and mastering the domineering entanglement. There was still a gap with the world's top powerhouses. Suddenly, Sha Chen's eyes flashed, and his figure disappeared, and several water dragons that teased Zoro also exploded out of thin air. The next second, he had arrived in front of Nami, who was panting and pale. On the sea around her, a bunch of Shandia warriors were lying up and down. Each of them had tattoos and fur, and looked like a primitive person. They were not good people, at first glance. Just now, Nami was injured by the sea stone hidden in the hand of the mohawk-headed Weber. He was trying to strangle Nami's neck. As a result, Sha Chen, who suddenly came, grabbed her wrist, stared at her indifferently, and gently pinched it. Snap. Weber's wrist was broken directly. The latter screamed in pain, and he was really a tough guy. He encouraged the repelling shell connected to his arm and blew out a huge impact force. It is said that after the repelling shell is fully charged, it can break the keel of a ship. It is 10 times the power of the impact shell, and the impact shell is usually used on the Viper, which is a specialty of Sky Island. Wei Ba is very similar to Sha Chen's motorboat in his previous life. Weber's timing was very accurate, and Sha Chen had no room to dodge, but Sha Chen had no intention of dodging. He just covered his body with a layer of armed color domineering, boom. It was like a heavy hammer hitting a steel plate. Sha Chen's body did not move at all, but Weber's arm was broken by Sha Chen's grasp. But his physique was not weak either. He did not directly disable his arm. Sha Chen glanced at him coldly and kicked him into the White Sea. The surviving Shandia people saw this scene and rushed to rescue him. But no one dared to step forward and fight Sha Chen. The little girl's strength was so terrifying before, and Sha Chen, who came like teleportation, was probably more powerful than they could imagine. Now it's better to find Weber first. Weber is the most powerful warrior in their tribe and the next chief. Nothing can happen. Sha Chen, Nami called out weakly. I'm here, how are you? Sha Chen bent over and hugged Nami like a princess. It's okay, I'm just exhausted, and there seems to be something under the bandage. What a thing, you little, forget it, let's go back. Nami said. What about those who hurt you? They are not enemies, Sha Chen. When I was fighting just now, my observation haki heard a lot of things. They are also quite pitiful. Nami said. Sha Chen raised his eyebrows. He originally thought that Nami's observation haki, which had just awakened, had a large perception area even with the help of the electromagnetic expansion power of the lightning fruit. But there should not be any special effects. Even if there are, they are developed to the late stage, such as foreseeing the future. According to the setting of this world, if the observation haki is developed to the extreme, foreseeing the future is almost a universal function. Of course, it is difficult to develop to this point. Before Wano country, only Katakuri mastered this ability. He wanted to ask Nami, but seeing her weak appearance, he didn't say anything. He looked around at everyone and snorted coldly, you are lucky. Quote. Then Sha Chen threw a water ball at each person and flew away. Congratulations to the host for defeating the Shandia Legion and obtaining 26 collection times. Hey, Sha Chen, where did you go just now? Zoro had just landed and was tearing at the roasted meat. As for helping Sha Chen watch the fire, that was impossible, as he and the cook were mortal enemies. Before he finished speaking, he noticed that Nami had changed a lot. Not only had the decorations on her body changed, but there were also 5 small drums floating behind her. Is this true? Because of his ridiculous road idiocy, Zoro has never encountered a divine weapon, so he has no idea that there are gods on this sky island. Naturally, he has never seen Enelu. But his intuition told him that Nami at this time was not simple, and it also gave him a vague sense of danger, stimulating his temples to throb. Sha Chen talked about the hundreds of years of fighting between the Shandians and the Sky Islanders, and the two couldn't help but sigh. Nami rested in Sha Chen's arms for a while, and then patted Sha Chen gently. Sensing the little strength he had recovered, he hooked his finger at Zoro. Come on, green algae head, singled out. Quote, green, the blood vessels on Zoro's forehead suddenly swelled up. To be honest, Sanji was the only one on the ship who called him green algae head. No one else had ever used this name. Nami suddenly provoked him, and his brain was crazy. But he saw Sha Chen had already dodged to the side, and understood that this was true. So Nami accidentally gained the power of the devil fruit. Zoro said nothing, solemnly put on his dark green headscarf, and the 3 swords were ready to go. He wanted to let Nami know that the devil fruit can make a person instantly powerful, but it is still not as good as the swordsman who practiced day and night. Suffering deeply in the world, this is the way of Ashura, 2 swords flow firefly slash. Quote. As he chanted in a low voice, brilliant green light and shadows swirled around his 3 swords, like fireflies dancing in the jungle at night, and they arrived in an instant, with the back of the sword facing Nami diagonally. He consciously controlled the power. Even if Sha Chen was guarding beside him, they were partners on the same boat after all. Nami was indeed shocked by Zoro's momentum. After all, since Zoro debuted, he really fought his way out of the pirates. He barely completed the elementalization of his whole body and disappeared in a flash. Boom! Zoro's ultimate move landed in the air, cutting off 3 huge trees that were as thick as 10 people hugging. Compared with the original work, his strength at this moment has greatly improved. This is the difference between having a famous teacher to teach and groping and slowly practicing. Otherwise, according to the original work, Zoro would only master one of the 36 trouble winds. His strength cannot be said to be bad, but in the later battles, he had no chance to play at all. I believe this is also a huge psychological blow and unwillingness for him personally. Thunder! Zoro walked out of the flying dust, waved his sword, drove away the dust, and maintained a good combat vision. He knew that Nami had obtained an extraordinary fruit from the strong light and thunder emitted from Nami just now. It is very likely to be a natural system. Practicing with Sha Chen every day, he knows the ability of the natural system very well, but he also has a plan in mind. Although Sha Chen never publicly said that he was a natural type, and he also showed many strange abilities that were not natural types, in fact, most people on the ship felt that the probability that Sha Chen was a natural type was very high. As for the other abilities he had shown along the way, there must be other reasons, but if Sha Chen didn't say it, they wouldn't ask. I believe that when the time is right, Sha Chen will take the initiative to tell them, because they are partners on the same ship, and they are enough to entrust their lives and backs. Zoro's offensive is endless, and his moves are getting more and more, including air, ground, group attack, and strong attack. His combat system is getting more and more perfect. Even the problem of chanting before making a move is getting more and more serious. Some words sounded full of middle school syndrome to Sha Chen. Nami was still embarrassed at first. After all, in Sha Chen's eyes, Zoro's attack would not break the defense, but Zoro was a real strong man in the paradise stage. Sanami's speed is getting faster and faster, and she awakened the observation color again, and it is a certain characteristic of the observation color. Soon she started to counterattack. Because she didn't have much physical strength, she paid great attention to distribution. At first, she launched some small lightning chain attacks. The green flame wrapped on Zoro's sword could even break lightning, but it was a pity that this thing also consumed a lot of his physical strength. After a while, Nami's advantage became more and more obvious. Of course, she would not directly attack Zoro's body with high-voltage current. They were just sparring. The two sides fought for about half an hour. Nami was exhausted, but Zoro was also panting and in poor condition. His injuries had not recovered. Although it was just a superficial injury, if anyone had so many cuts on his body and so much blood, it would also be a great weakening in terms of physical strength. I lost. Zoro let out a long breath, put away his sword, and said calmly. No, I have no strength either. Nami waved her hand quickly, but she was very proud in her heart. My strength is far from enough, so when I meet the enemy, it depends on you. Sha Chen invited the two to sit down and eat. After they have recovered, let them continue fighting. This is a good training for both sides. Until the evening, Ganfer's people did not come, and Shandia also. It seems that I didn't say it, forget it, it's not important. But Nami can already suppress Zoro. The natural thunder fruit is worthy of being the strongest natural fruit. High pressure, high temperature, paralysis, penetration, control. Nami does not need to carefully control and master it, it is naturally inherent, not to mention that Nami is naturally very sensitive to the changes in thunder and lightning climate. Even if her physical strength is not in perfect state, it is enough to suppress Zoro. From this moment on, Zoro completely fell from the top three of the team's combat power. Why haven't they come back yet? Nami sensed the location of Luffy, Robin and others. They were wandering in the area where the vines were. Nami and others had been to that place. It was a ruin, but it had been almost destroyed. Sha Chen also sensed it and said with a smile, Robin is an archaeologist, so he should be interested in that place, right? A picture flashed through Sha Chen's mind. This was something he had forgotten before. There seemed to be a historical text in the ruins of the Golden City Shandora. It introduces the story of Shandora guarding the historical text, but it only flashed in the original animation, and the details are not clear. Should I get it back? After thinking about it, Sha Chen gave up. This thing is very heavy, and Sha Chen has no interest in collecting historical texts. If the historical text embedded in the gold was not picked out, the whole thing would be ugly, and Sha Chen would not bring it back. But it was this subtle sense that made Sha Chen's face show a trace of surprise. He disappeared in an instant, and when he appeared again, he was holding a little girl wrapped in a white headscarf in his hand. His mouth was tightly pursed, and tears in his eyes flashed. She struggled hard in the air and fell, and Sha Chen put her on the ground. The little girl stood up and retreated quickly, but she was so anxious that she was tripped by a stone again. She stood up again, retreated again, and tripped again. This look made everyone confused. Even Nami couldn't bear it. Don't come over, don't come over, the devil who controls lightning. The little girl was so scared that her eyes rolled back, and she stood straight and fainted. Am I so scary? Nami was helpless. The decoration on her body was still the suit given by Sha-Chen, of course, the upper body had clothes. But it looked more majestic and heroic as a whole, and it didn't have iron-faced fangs, so scary. Sha-Chen's wife was this little girl. In fact, when the other party appeared within 100 meters of them, he knew who it was. Aisha from the Shandia tribe, a natural owner of observation. Not only can she have a very wide coverage range, she can also quietly invade Enel's territory. In the original work, she often sneaked into Arpayard to steal base, that is, soil. You should know that the entire Arpayard and the nearby Angel Island are within the range of Enel's observation. Although the other party cannot maintain it all day long. But as long as there is a mistake, with Enel's temperament, Aisha will definitely not survive. No matter what the other party has had in the past, he can ruthlessly destroy the entire Sky Island Bika. In the original work, he also planned to let Arpayard fall into the Qinghai and destroy the nearby Angel Island. In the end, only 5 people were selected to go to the moon with him on the Ark Proverbs. This cruelty and coldness, even Sha-Chen couldn't help but say that he was a ruthless person. Moreover, to be able to be so ruthless, he must have killed a lot of people in the past, otherwise the people on Angel Island would not be so afraid of him. But that's it, Enel has never had an incident with Aisha in all these years. I have to say that Aisha is somewhat capable. Otherwise, the other party would not have been able to quietly invade within his 1,000-meter range. You must know that the skill-based observation hockey is an active skill for Sha-Chen, and he does not need to keep a calm state of mind all the time. Since Nami and Zoro started fighting and training, Sha-Chen has always kept his observation hockey turned on to ensure that he can rescue any of them in time. Even if most of the interference from external information is blocked, not just anyone can invade within his 1,000-meter range. This decoration, Shandian, but her voice is very familiar. By the way, I heard it when I was fighting those Shandians before. Nami said. The voice at that time said, Bass, I want to get more Bass back, so that Brother Weber and everyone will not be injured again. After all, Nami had just mastered the observation hockey, and the range covered was so large. Just like Sha-Chen's first use, a large number of voices flooded into her mind, which would not only not be beneficial to her battle, but would instead cause a drag. Fortunately, after this afternoon's sparring, she has been able to control the range of the observation hockey very well. It must be said that Nami is also very talented in this area. That's why you asked me to let them go, Bass, you didn't know what this was before. Nami shook her head. After the awakening of the observation hockey, I heard a lot of information. Sometimes they would repeat the voice of the same person. At that time, I knew that base was the soil. Sha-Chen's heart moved. Before, he asked Nami to practice with Zoro, and he never raised his own questions. He just wanted Nami to slowly master the strength and make progress step by step. But now, Sha-Chen summoned the water flow to cover himself, controlling the frequency of its vibration, and excluding all information. Then he just stared at Nami, with a layer of water curtain between them, his mouth opened and closed. Nami understood what Sha-Chen meant and covered the past with his observation hockey, but unfortunately she could not hear anything. In her perception, it was like a ball of water that merged with Sha-Chen's breathing and heartbeat. Sha-Chen shook his head and looked at the plug-in page. According to the general rules, with this thing, his soul is absolutely safe. As long as he doesn't commit suicide, it is basically impossible for others to obtain his identity as a time traveler. So he pulled Zoro in and conducted the experiment in the same way as before. Nami showed a thoughtful expression. Sha-Chen immediately withdrew. What did Nami hear just now? Nature system, lightning, armed color domineering. Nami said, he did hear Zoro's voice just now. But the content was intermittent, exactly the same as when he fought with those mountain Asians before. Her mind was also very flexible. Suddenly she thought of something, reached out and covered her mouth, her face full of disbelief. Could it be? Yes, Nami, your face expression is really unusual. You can listen to the voices of others, maybe not just people. Sha-Chen thought, although it was a bit outrageous. But there are speculations about Nami's life experience. There are also many opinions on the forum in the previous life. Some people even identify Nami as the king of heaven, Uranus. After all, her talent in navigation is really outrageous and amazing. Sha Chen released the observation haki and quickly found a white wolf. In the original book, this white wolf group once held a banquet with Luffy and others. It should be easier to talk to. I instantly went over and caught the largest one. White wolf, what's going on? Where is this? Where is my little female wolf? Before it was fully awake, Sha Chen pressed the wolf's head to the ground. It struggled desperately but couldn't shake it at all. So after a few seconds, it made a whining sound of begging for mercy. Nami shook her head, indicating that she didn't understand. Is it limited to the same kind? Let Chopper teach you the animal language later. Ah, is this something I can learn? Nami shouted speechlessly. In fact, Sha Chen cares about whether she can listen to the voice of all things. Ah, the demon of thunder and lightning. Aisha happened to wake up, and when she saw Nami going crazy, she fainted directly. Seeing Aisha like this, it was 100% Enel's fault. He controlled the water flow, found a spare mattress from the bed, and then put Aisha on it. This is not a strange habit of his. Sha Chen can distinguish right from wrong. The Shandia warriors attacked Nami before, but the cause was that Nami took the initiative to provoke. And he has already punished them. As long as they come to trade honestly in the future, Sha Chen will accept it. However, they have to be notified first. This Aisha appeared by chance. Besides, Sha Chen also had a sense of compassion in his heart. The Shandian people had lived such a miserable life in the past few hundred years. Moreover, this little girl in front of him, who had a positive outlook, was so precocious and sensible, and made people feel pity, was also very suitable to be the messenger. Not long after, Aisha woke up, and before she fainted, he explained to her that the owner of Arpayard had changed, and Enel had paid the price for his actions. Aisha was shocked, her mouth was wide open, and after Sha Chen stuffed a piece of meat into her, she excitedly accepted the result. In fact, she had noticed these abnormalities when they met before. Otherwise, she would not have been so bold as to rely on her hidden talent to quietly approach. Sha Chen did not hide it and told Aisha his plan. The latter's eyes lit up when she heard it, and she also felt that Sha Chen was a big sucker. Compared with the people of Sky Island, their Shandian tribe stored a lot of gold. After all, their culture is broken, but they have heard about the importance of gold, and their tribe has the habit and tradition of collecting gold. It's just that there is no place to use it on Sky Island, otherwise they would definitely live much better than now. She couldn't wait to go back. Sha Chen thought about it and asked Zoro to send her off. Zoro didn't refuse. He also wanted to go out for a breath of fresh air. He was defeated repeatedly this afternoon, and he looked calm on the surface. At most, he was stabbed by Nami, whose character was getting worse. But this did not affect his fighting ability, but he was definitely unhappy in his heart. He couldn't understand why the talents of the crew members who were picked up on the road were so outrageous. Even the weak chicken Usopp had talents in equipment manufacturing research that most people could not reach. Not to mention Chopper, since he got on the ship. He can exercise freely without worrying about leaving hidden injuries on his body. Luffy and Sanji, not to mention. As for Nico Robin, now we only know that he is a superhuman-type flower fruit ability user, who can transform all parts of his body, and his attack power seems to be average. After all, joint skills and strangulation will not have much effect on the strong. Zoro just hasn't tried it himself, otherwise Sha Chen will definitely spit on his face. What is he thinking? The flower fruit itself brings Robin an outrageous twisting force. Don't ask how you know, it's not beautiful. There was only one Nami left, but Nami's talent in navigation is also top, but everyone on the ship understands that such a talent is destined to be only an auxiliary and is well protected by everyone. As a result, Nami has not only surpassed himself in strength, but also made great progress. According to Sha Chen, Nami may become a person who is on par with him in the future. Zoro doesn't think Sha Chen is bragging. After all, Nami is the thunder fruit of the natural system, known as the strongest existence of the natural system. So back to the original topic, why are the talents of the people on his ship so outrageous? Is Luffy really the chosen one, or is Sha Chen? Think about it carefully. Except for himself, Nami and Usopp, everyone else was invited to board by Sha Chen himself. Although he was depressed, Zoro was still in a good mood. Following such a pirate group, his future achievements will definitely be extraordinary, which will also be of great help to him becoming the world's #1 swordsman. Until the second day, Luffy and other talents returned one after another. As a result, they passed through the woods and pushed aside the bushes. They saw white wild wolves lying on the ground and were shocked, especially Sha Chen and Nami were in the middle of the wolf pack. They thought the two were attacked by the wolf pack. Chopper hurried forward to check, and it turned out that they were asleep. Sha Chen, why didn't you invite us to the party? Luffy asked the sleepy Sha Chen loudly. Sha Chen pinched his numb ears and didn't answer. How was the harvest? Sha Chen changed to a comfortable position, leaned on the Wolf King, and asked everyone. Luffy was still yelling, blaming Sha Chen for not bringing him to the barbecue, and was directly pulled aside by Usopp. Sanji looked thoughtfully at the Lord of the Sky Orochi, who had eaten half of it. And Nami, who was dressed strangely, had an unbelievable guess in her heart. As for Chopper, he had already tiptoed to the sleepy Nami and stretched out his little hoof. He was very interested in the 5 small drum-shaped things, especially that this thing seemed to be floating. It was incredible. Although they encountered those so-called magic weapons in the battle yesterday, they had various weapons made of clouds and shellfish in their hands, such as iron clouds, swamp clouds, gas clouds, and ball clouds, which were magical but also very fun. Robin smiled and said nothing. The discovery at the center of Shandora gave her a new goal and the motivation to continue living. As Sha Chen said to Robin in Alabasta, Robin really wanted to die at that time. She had been searching for more than 20 years, experienced all kinds of hardships and darkness, and was accustomed to all kinds of ugliness of human nature, refreshing her bottom line again and again. But she never found any news about the 100-year blank history. This made her discouraged. Robin was also tired. Even if Sha Chen repelled Aokiji with his strong strength in the later period, one of his nightmares, her mood had never been shaken like today. So, people must have a goal in life. No matter whether the goal is big, small, far or near, there must be some pursuit. Even if he was lying flat, it was a pursuit. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed before everyone's eyes, and Nami came to Luffy's side with a lightning bolt, and punched him hard on the head. Look clearly, this is a friend, not food, Nami yelled. Because Luffy just dragged the hind legs of a white wolf and planned to go to the barbecue. Nami could bear this. But Nami's move shocked everyone present, and only Luffy held his head and screamed in pain. He felt that Nami's hit this time was more painful than before. After all, the speed of lightning was not slow. According to a certain monkey, speed is quality. Nami, when did you become a devil fruit user? Usopp was shocked. Nami-chan. Sanji's cigarette fell to the ground in surprise, but then he thought that Nami became a devil fruit user, which meant that she could not swim. If one day she accidentally fell into the water, then he, hehehehe. For Sanji, who has implemented chivalry into his bones, on the one hand, he knows that he should keep a distance from Nami, but on the other hand, he can't control the impulse of his genes. This is his nature. But his impulse is kept at the level of appreciation. Without those evil thoughts, well, at least in Sanji's own words, he just simply appreciates beauty. Nami glanced at Sha Chen, who was smiling. Nami shot a lightning bolt from her finger, directly knocking Sanji away. It won't cause any injuries to Sanji, it will only paralyze him for a while. Yesterday's battle with Zoro was still very effective. Chopper. So cool. It ran to Nami's side and jumped, and wanted to touch the 5 floating drums. Robin looked thoughtful. She had already arrived at Enel's shrine, where there were many traces of looting and burn marks left by lightning. Combining her own experience and discovery, she slowly deduced a truth. Nami's luck is really good, and the configuration of this pirate group is too luxurious. 4 devil fruit ability users, 2 psychic, 1 nature thunder fruit, 1 suspected nature water fruit. And Sha Chen has the strength to confront the admiral head-on. If this continues, who can stop them? Maybe Luffy's dream of becoming a king is really not far away. Then what about himself? Will these people really help him find the historical text? Needless to say, Luffy directly held a morning banquet with Nami's new ability as an excuse. The white wolves who were drunk yesterday were forced to drink more wine. Yesterday, although Sha Chen didn't know the animal language, it didn't matter. He just caught the Wolf King and let them understand what he meant. It was lively until noon, and finally someone came. I don't know if it was a coincidence, Ganfer of Angel Island, with a few Sky Island people who were suspected to be the managers of Angel Island, and the chieftains of the Shandians arrived here in their Viba. Prince Chen took a look and didn't see Zoro's shadow. The chieftain of the Shandians was a smart man. He understood what Sha Chen meant when he saw his expression, and he quickly explained. My lord, don't worry. We didn't do anything to Mr. Roronoa. He should be. The chieftain was a little speechless when he said this, and he felt like crying for some reason. Yesterday, Aisha was successful and brought Zoro back to the tribe. At the same time, Weber and others had already returned to the tribe. The injuries on their bodies were very familiar. They were caused by lightning and some blunt blows, but according to their description, the person who used lightning was definitely not Enelu. Although the chieftain of Shandia lived in seclusion, he was also the most powerful warrior in the previous tribe. I have seen Enelu. In fact, there are many unreasonable places in the original work, but considering that it is an animation after all, it is set for special effects, which is understandable. The real world must have its own more meticulous operating logic. Moreover, the chieftain had also met the previous pirate king Galdi. Roger. After hearing the descriptions of Weber and Aisha, he knew that it was probably pirates who occupied Arpayado, and their goal was naturally gold. There is no doubt that this is a group of pirates who plunder by trickery. After all, Arpayado is the homeland of their Shandia people, although it has long been occupied by the Sky Island people and they have been expelled. But the situation is stronger than people. Even if someone is dissatisfied, they dare not say it in front of Zoro, so the chieftain of Shandia asked Aisha to take Zoro around, actually to avoid him and discuss what to do next. In the end, they chose to accept Sha Chen's conditions. After all, 100 kilograms of gold for 1 square kilometer of land is too cost-effective. As long as they arrive earlier than the Sky Island people, Arpayado will return to their hands. If they encounter people who are dissatisfied, that would be great. I believe Sha Chen will teach them a lesson. He knew that some pirates could do something crazy for gold, even to the point of slaughtering the entire Angel Island. But they didn't expect that they had been looking for Zoro for a whole night. Because Aisha said that Zoro was very interested in their power, so they rode out for a stroll. They finally found him, and then the big group set out, but Zoro was lost again while walking, so they went to look for him again, and this went back and forth. Finally, they had no choice. The chief asked Aisha and Zoro to go together, but now it looks like this. Alas, who is this Mr. Roronoa Zoro? Sha Chen expanded his observation haki and had captured Zoro. They were indeed heading this way, and now it was Aisha who was driving the boat. Faintly, Sha Chen could feel that the expression on Aisha's face was very stinky, very stinky. You're really worthy of being called Zoro. Even this natural and rare possessor of observation haki almost had his defense broken. Sha Chen was very curious about how Zoro did it. Then let's start the trade, Sha Chen said to Ganfer and Chief Sandoya. As for Luffy and the others, they had been persuaded by Nami. He also talked about the struggle between Sandia and the people of Sky Island. Sha Chen also told him that he wanted to forcefully end their struggle in this way, and he could get gold. Why not? Everyone thought it was okay. Lord Sha Chen, can you let us trade first? Chief Sandoya said. Why are you the ones? It was obviously our ship that landed first. A fat man from Angel Island shouted loudly. The people behind Chief Sandia were not willing to lag behind. When the two parties met, they had already stared at each other, wishing to bite off the flesh of each other. How could hundreds of years of blood feuds be so easily resolved, and this was in front of Sha Chen? Otherwise, they would have fought hundreds of meters away. Ganfer had not spoken all the time. At this moment, he was still standing on the side of the Sky Island people, and his butt could not sit crookedly. That's enough, Sha Chen said softly, like thunder, exploding in the ears of the two groups, frightening them all into silence, closing their mouths involuntarily, and even some people's eardrums were injured, with blood flowing out of their ears. I don't care about your story at all, but today you bought the ownership of Arpayado from me, so you should honestly rest and recuperate on your own land, and don't cross the border easily, otherwise, Sha Chen reminded before starting, you will know what the consequences are of violating the rules I set. The reactions of the two sides were different, but at this moment they were very obedient. Okay, one person at a time, first tell me the amount of your respective gold, and then I will divide the territory for you. The chief of Shandia and Ganfer looked at each other, and the two spoke at the same time. Angel Island produces gold, 2.45 tons. Sandia produces 6 tons of gold. As soon as these words came out, the two teams below stared at each other again, full of resentment. Okay, you guys are really not good guys. According to the rules set by Sha Chen, the small island in front of him is only more than 200 square kilometers. 100 kilograms of gold for 1 square kilometer. No matter how creditworthy Sha Chen is, he should first find a way to control the island in his own hands. Therefore, the gold from Angel Island can not only buy all the ownership of Arpaio, but also have some extra. The meaning of the extra is very obvious, which is a benefit fee for Sha Chen. After all, in Ganfer's view, Sha Chen is for gold, so he should be sent away with gold as soon as possible. As for the conflict with the Shandians, he doesn't think Sha Chen can handle it. He also saw the Pirate King back then. Occasionally, some newspapers would rush up from Qinghai, and after he was exiled, he became an air knight. The chance of getting these news is higher than that of ordinary Sky Islanders and Shandians, so he knows that Galdi Roger has become the Pirate King. But even the Pirate King did not resolve the conflict between them, so he did not think that this was something that only Sha Chen and his group, who were a little stronger, could resolve. The chieftain of Shandia, because of their cultural characteristics, was not as cunning as Ganfer. He brought most of the gold stored in their tribe. After all, he had been the chieftain for so many years. His purpose was simple, and he also used enough gold to impress Sha Chen and make him stand on their side. After all, 100 kilograms for 1 square kilometer of land was really cheap. Nami, who had been paying attention to this place not far away, heard this and emitted electricity from her hands, crackling and exploding continuously. Usopp was frightened to one side, and even Chopper's hair exploded, turning into a furry earthy brown ball. Some people couldn't figure it out. Gold, when can it be counted by tons? Even the gold they looted from the ruins yesterday was only a few hundred kilograms. Although there was still some left in the cracks and soil, they really didn't have the mood to clean it up. Of course, this premise is to exclude the golden bell and its base. After all, that thing alone weighs more than 10 tons. But from Sha Chen's point of view, he doesn't want to sell it at all. For Nami, gold that can't be exchanged for money is not real gold. Sha Chen glanced at Nami and thought to himself, it's really embarrassing. What's so little gold? This is the arc proverbs that Nami didn't see in her storage space. The pipes on it are all made of gold, not to mention the ugly statue of Enel. The specific gravity of that thing alone is more than 10 times that of the golden bell and its base. After all, he looted most of the gold in Sandora to make it. This is still Sha Chen's estimate. So after the other party proposed it, Sha Chen was not moved at all. But they could guess what they meant, and it looked like they wanted to kill someone with a borrowed knife. However, Sha Chen thought he was a man of his word, and he also valued promises. You only have these now, right? Ganfer and Chief Shandia felt nervous. Could it be that the bet was wrong? Sha Chen's original purpose was actually to plunder. But even so, they had no way to resist, so they looked at each other and said tacitly, that's all. Sha Chen nodded and motioned them to step back. Then he came to the edge of the White Sea, inserted his hand into the sea water, and then opened the sight and spread it downwards vigorously. Soon, Gaia Island became clear in Sha Chen's mind. Before Gaia Island was hit by the surging sea current, it was roughly in the shape of a skull, but later the surging sea current directly rushed one side of the skull's eye socket and part of the cheekbone into the sky. Coupled with the influence of the later tidal currents and the drift of the land, the current area of Gaia Island has been greatly affected, but those islands that have been silent one after another are near Gaia Island. After Sha Chen sensed it clearly, he began to look for the sky-high current. With his ability to move the entire island to an altitude of 10,000 meters, he is now capable of doing so. Wenbrin Kulakai, with a chestnut hairstyle on his head, is going to the sea to look for gold and the ruins of Shandora as usual. He is the descendant of the adventurer Wenbrin Rolando. He wants to prove to the world that Rolando is not a big liar. He has been diving here all year round to look for ruins and has suffered from severe lung disease and diver's disease. Originally, according to his estimate, today was a good day, and the sky-high current would not appear for some time. As a result, he tossed around underwater and just found a gold necklace hidden in the mud. When he was digging hard, he suddenly felt that the seawater around him was vibrating abnormally. He couldn't help but spit out a few bubbles, and continued to sense it. His eyes suddenly widened. Regardless of the fact that the gold necklace had not been dug out, he swam upward with all his strength. He climbed onto the boat panting, urging the Yuenshin coalition to dock the boat quickly. But it was too late. He underestimated the power of this rushing sea current. The sea current, which was originally limited to a range of tens or hundreds of meters, was affected by unknown factors this time and swirled on the seabed, and then came to the bottom of the entire Gaia Island. The entire island began to shake, and animals such as the compass bird and the baboon group were frightened by the movement and ran around everywhere, all running towards the coast. But the next moment, the huge rushing sea current pushed the entire island up, and a water curtain lotus seemed to appear on the edge of the island, but it was only a flash, and the entire island quickly flew into the air with the rushing sea current. But the island is an island after all, and a large amount of debris fell while flying. Although the rushing current was very powerful, it had weakened when it reached about 7 kilometers. Then Sha Chen stimulated the underwater extinct volcano crater landform that stimulated the rushing current. A larger current rushed up to the sky, but the extinct volcano below also revived, and the surrounding extinct volcano ruins began to collapse under the impact of the huge shock wave. "Here they come, make way," Sha Chen said to them, waving his hands left and right again. Ganfer and some of the Shandia chiefs didn't understand why, but they moved aside with all their heart, and as a result, they saw a scene they would never forget. The vast and boundless Bai Sea began to boil, as if someone had set up a pot underneath. A large number of seafood on the Sky Islands were dizzy from the shock, and some seemed to be cooked. Then a huge island broke through the thick island clouds and the Bai Sea. Sha Chen intercepted the ocean current before it fell and made up for the hole under the Bai Sea. It was only repaired at the critical moment. Then about one half of Gaia Island was left, and it hit the Bai Sea city heavily, causing a huge tsunami. It surged everywhere. "It's broken, sir." Ganfer thought of Angel Island, and he subconsciously summoned Pierre, but thinking that even if he tried his best, it would be useless, he could only look at Sha Chen with a pleading look. Sha Chen waved his hand, controlling the tsunami to slowly calm down. This time, he also consumed more than 9/10 of his physical strength. After a good estimate, this is also very cost-effective. After all, this is half of the island of Gaia, at least 1,000 square kilometers. If it weren't for the natural wonders of the sky-high current, Sha Chen would not have been able to pull them up in one breath. Congratulations to the host for defeating the Tsuruyama coalition and Kulikai, and obtaining 18 collection times. Congratulations to the host for defeating the plot character Bellamy and his pirate group, and obtaining 22 collection times. Congratulations to the host for defeating a large number of elite pirates, and obtaining 36 collection times. Congratulations to the host for slightly changing the map of the pirate world, and obtaining 15 collection times. An unexpected surprise. I envy the day of the floating fruit. Golden Lion. You don't have to envy me, the largest island I made is not as big as yours. Are you going to destroy the world? So far, Sha Chen's number of collections has reached the highest in history, 244 times. This Sky Island copy is really a treasure land for him, and changing the terrain can also gain collection times, which has opened up a new idea for Sha Chen, but it is not possible in a short period of time. If he does too much, it will easily attract the attention of the world government. Sha Chen is only a general-level fighter now. It is not a problem to deal with one general, but if there are more, it will be bad. Sha Chen retreated slightly, and came behind him with the head of the Wolf King, who was also stunned. The latter lay down very tactfully. Sha Chen leaned against his body and rested for a while. He did it on purpose. Although he consumed more than 9/10 of his physical strength, he had recovered to the standard line of 9/10 in just a few breaths. At this moment, his physical fitness has reached 3,184.3 points. According to the plugin, this is more than 3,000 times the average physical fitness of ordinary people in this world. Obviously, Sha Chen wasted his time in vain. In the eyes of others, this move was just that he had lifted this huge island from Qinghai. They would never think of the Sky Current. In fact, the news of the Sky Current was very niche in the entire One Piece world. If you don't live near Gaia Island all year round, you probably don't know about it. When his physical strength recovered to 4/5, the scene was still silent. He coughed, and everyone looked at him, even Luffy. Robin, who was very determined, was confused. He knew that Sha Chen was very strong, but he was so strong. He is already the best in the world. He still felt that it was unlikely. Sha Chen was too young, but correspondingly, he also felt a strong sense of security in his heart. Being protected by such a person, what else could he not do? Even if he gave away some of the things he regarded as treasures. She looked thoughtfully at Nami, who was holding her heart with both hands and shining with stars in her eyes. Lord Sha Chen. Gonfeuer stammered. He had lived for 70 or 80 years and had never seen such a scene. At this moment, Sha Chen's image in front of him became extremely tall. He was not only like a god, but more like a demon. Now distribute the land on Arpayard first. Considering the relationship between you, who will Arpayard be distributed to first? Sha Chen's eyes swept over the people of Angel Island and Shandia, but no one dared to say a word. Even Weber, who had a broken arm hanging on his chest, remained silent. Sha Chen glanced at them and understood. In that case, I will make the decision, Robin. Deputy Captain, what do you want? Robin walked over leisurely. Tell them about the history of Shandora. Okay, there is an ancient city ruins in Arpayard, you should all know it. Actually, as Robin told the story, the Shandia and Sky Island people suddenly realized that they were actually of the same origin. Well, this was mainly an act. After all, apart from the difference in appearance, everyone had two wings on their backs, which was obviously different from the Qinghai people. If they were not of the same origin, what else could they be? That is, the soil is too important to Sky Island. Otherwise, they would not fight to the death. After listening to Robin's explanation, they felt that the next reconciliation was more necessary, so Ganfer of Angel Island took the initiative to retreat and return the ruins of Shandora to the Shandia people. Then the two families divided the territory again on the newly risen Gaia Island. In the end, the Shandia people obtained 600 square kilometers of land, which naturally included Arpayado. The Sky Island people obtained 250 square kilometers of land. The people of Sky Island regretted it very much. If they had known, they would have brought more gold. But now that things have come to this, they dare not provoke Sha Chen. So let it be. Anyway, they will wait for Sha Chen to leave. As for the remaining land, they can go for a stroll on weekdays. It shouldn't be a big problem, right? Considering the blood feud between the two tribes, Sha Chen placed their land on both sides, and the middle area as a permanent neutral zone. It happened to be a small mountain. Although this mountain range has been broken into several paths due to the impact of the supergiant rising current, it is also a passage in the middle. It can be used as a land communication channel between the two tribes, and a pass can be built again. But when Sha Chen led people to divide from the air, he did not find Bellamy. Instead, he found Zoro, Aisha, and Kulakai who mixed with them. Sha Chen was naturally scolded by Zoro. Although he was very shocked by Sha Chen's terrifying strength, he knew that when such a large island sprang out from the White Sea, if he hadn't broken through at the last minute. He took Aisha up into the air urgently, and was killed by such a big island. His strength is very strong, but it depends on what monster he is compared with. But because of this, he is more eager to improve his strength. If he becomes the world's #1 swordsman, he can be on par with Sha Chen. If not, then Sha Chen will be the next goal to pursue. Life is so wonderful because of the existence of challenges. The hatred between the two tribes is temporarily eliminated. Under Luffy's call, the banquet is naturally opened. Kulakai and Shandora's people hugged their heads and cried bitterly. They didn't expect that they were holding on to each other. Well, if Nico Robin hadn't told the history of Shandora, they would have forgotten it. But they didn't expect such a coincidence today, and they were also very moved when they heard that Kulakai's generations were chasing Shandora. Sha Chen leaned on the Wolf King, looking at Luffy and others dancing around the bonfire, and fell into deep thought. Especially when Luffy was dancing with them, his shadow cast on the ground was so conspicuous. The drums of liberation, Sun God Nika. There's nothing special about this. Perhaps Sha Chen didn't feel too much appeal from Luffy because he was standing in the perspective of God. Of course, it is undeniable that because of Luffy's existence, they were not so boring when sailing on the sea, but at the same time, there were a lot more troubles. After all, recklessness is also synonymous with Luffy. While he was drinking and dreaming, Robin came over. What's wrong? The historical text on the ship has been interpreted, and it is about the news of Poseidon, the king of the sea. Robin did not hide it. In fact, he just knew that there was a historical text on the ship, and this happened because Nami heard Robin talk about the story of Sandora in the morning, and she went to cover the Golden Bell for some reason. So Robin didn't notice this when she got on the ship before. After all, her cabin was also on the second floor. Nami later met Kulakai, completed the story of Sandora from him, and asked Sha Chen for permission before telling everyone about the Golden Bell on the ship. Kulakai and the people of Shandora were very excited to hear the news. The chief of Shandia and Kulakai were allowed to board the ship and rang the Golden Bell together. The rest of the people stood on the shore and admired. This was their long-cherished wish for 400 years. Once it was fulfilled, the excitement of both sides was unspeakable. Finally, the two discussed and gave the Golden Bell to the Straw Hat Pirates, so that they could take the Golden Bell to the New World and the end of the Grand Line. Let the bell of Shandora resound throughout the world. The words sounded good, and it is not ruled out that they have such a wish, but in fact, the situation is stronger than people. They know very well that there is no way to get the Golden Bell back. It is impossible for Sha Chen to say nothing and directly give all the unallocated land on Gaia Island that was washed up to the Shandora tribe. There is no neutral zone now. If they can maintain peace between them, after a few decades, the Shandora tribe will be able to gain a firm foothold at this 10,000-meter altitude. Sha Chen naturally knew that Poseidon, the Sea King, was referring to the princess of Fishman Island. However, he still pretended to be very interested and motioned Robin to sit down next to him and listen to her story. There was not much information in the historical text, but under Sha Chen's intentional questioning, Robin also told many stories about her travels around the world over the years. This was their second long talk. Robin really opened up a little to Sha Chen. As he spoke, Sha Chen raised a question that had troubled him for a long time. Robin, it stands to reason that with your current development of the Devil Fruit ability, you can completely change your appearance. Why haven't you done it yet? Robin tilted her head, and the charm of a mature lady blossomed at this moment. She pretended to be confused, but her heart was like an explosion. Yes, why didn't she think of it? The flower fruit can grow parts of her body within the range of her ability control. Ears can be grown, mouth can be grown, so only simulating part of the flesh and blood on her body can be grown. So changing her appearance is not a problem for her. Robin suddenly felt so stupid. But she couldn't say it out loud, so she racked her brains and finally found a reasonable reason. I'm a woman, I don't have enough physical strength, and I can't maintain the ability of the fruit all day long. Sha Chen thought about it. This is really possible. According to the current combat power of the group, Robin's comprehensive combat power should be the third from the bottom or the fourth from the bottom in the group. If Sanji doesn't get sick, he is firmly the third from the bottom, and if he gets sick, then Robin may be the fourth from the bottom. Then you have to take some time to exercise. A few days ago, I met a candidate admiral of the Navy. Her name is Tautu. Now her strength is already a great swordsman. What are you talking about? Do you mind adding me? Nami suddenly interrupted, and there was a faint flash of lightning around her. Sha Chen didn't think much about it, but seeing her like this, he thought of the Raiden Chakra mode in the Naruto world. She stretched out her hand and said to Nami, "You release electricity to my palm." Nami was a little confused. She was unhappy that Sha Chen and Robin had talked for so long, but she didn't want to hurt Sha Chen. Now she has established a relationship with Sha Chen, but she is not the kind of princess who makes trouble for no reason. But seeing Sha Chen insist, she still did it as she was told, and the voltage was very low at the beginning. But Sha Chen felt it was not enough, and signaled Nami to keep increasing the pressure. When it was raised to 15 million volts, Sha Chen felt that some cells in his palm were dividing faster. Then he signaled Nami to stop. A person fell into deep thought. This standard of strengthening is too high. No, that's not right. It should be because my physique is too strong. For other people, they definitely don't need such strong voltage and current. The principle of using electric current to exercise is to force cells to speed up metabolism and division, which is tantamount to damaging their own lifespan. Of course, human cells are countless, especially those in the world of One Piece, whose cells have a stronger tolerance, and this world also has illegal skills such as elementalization. Just let Nami control the intensity of lightning and speed up cell metabolism, that's it. This training method can work, and it can help Nami control it more finely. Then he didn't hide it and called Chopper over. The four of them gathered together to discuss the possibility of strengthening physical fitness with lightning. The three of them were shocked. At first glance, Sha Chen's idea seemed a bit far-fetched, but after Chopper tried it, he admitted that this method was indeed feasible. Unfortunately, Nami couldn't use lightning to strengthen her cells and speed up the training effect, because her elementalization was semi-passive. If her body cells suffered a certain amount of damage, they would automatically activate the elementalization. Speeding up metabolism is a kind of damage to one's own body in the eyes of elementalization. Sha Chen is still unsure whether it will succeed if the degree of control in the future is sufficient. Luffy can't use it either, after all, he is rubber and insulated. But in general, this can be regarded as a new way to use the thunder fruit. Chopper didn't participate in the banquet. He sat next to him with a large stack of paper and chattered. From time to time, he would run to find some herbs and mix potions. Of course, this will not affect the excitement of the scene at all, as long as Luffy is there. There will always be happiness at the banquet. Sha Chen found an opportunity and quietly slipped away. After he came to Sky Island, he had many targets he wanted to collect, but one thing was right after another, and he had no time. He was leaving tomorrow, so he would do it tonight. The most magical creation on Sky Island must be the island cloud, because the existence of the island cloud is the basis for the existence of Bye Bye Sea and Sky Island. According to the original book, it is rich in pyrobroin, also known as keratin factor. Sha Chen flew in the air for a while, found a large continuous island cloud and fell down. Put his hand on it and threw a 10 combo. Now he is rich and powerful. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill, floating. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 30 points of physical fitness and 25 points of spirit, skills, floating, impact shell, hot shell, taste shell. Floating. Sha Chen's eyes widened slightly, and he immediately looked at the floating skill wrapped in a faint golden light. This skill should be similar to the ability of the floating fruit. He carefully sensed it and found that this skill can make himself and his contact objects float. Isn't this the skill version of the floating fruit? Sha Chen thought, but there is only a layer of faint golden light, is it true? According to the current rules, the light on the surface of these things extracted is divided into two types. There is golden light and no golden light. The deeper the light with golden light, the greater its development space and the stronger the skill effect. Now he has obtained two of the deepest colors, one is a dark gold level skill, reincarnation, and the other is infinitely close to the dark gold level skill, elementalization. Needless to say, the effect of the former, the latter. Anyway, it is very awesome. Sha Chen thought back to his current means. Flying, even carrying objects, was not a problem at all. Especially with the help of Mary who had eaten the light float fruit, their golden dragon already had the long-term flight capability that most pirate groups, navies, and even governments dreamed of. You really can't run away after fighting. In short, you are powerful, but your ship is not as good as mine. I just can't catch up. Hey, I just want to ask if you are angry. After Sha Chen used the giant sky-high current to bring up the Gaia island below, he consumed a lot of physical strength. Only then did he sigh that he was particularly envious of the ability of the float fruit, but that didn't mean that his current combat system needed the float fruit. But it's better to have it than not. Let's put this skill aside for now and see what else can be collected later. Sha Chen deliberately changed a place and found another endless island cloud, throwing down a 10 link. Now it has plenty of collection times, so there is no need to save it at all. Collection is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a total of 50 points of physical fitness, 16 points of spirit, 2 strike shells, 2 power shells, and skills, cloud production, salt shells, and gas shells. Alas, another useless skill. Cloud production, as its name suggests, can consume physical strength and spirit to produce clouds, and adjust the proportion of water particles in it through it. It can produce complex operation effects such as lightning and fire clouds. If this skill is placed in a certain devil fruit, it is considered a pretty good fruit ability. But this skill has not even reached gold. I wonder if there is a development limit. It is also time to ballast the bottom of the cabin. Sha Chen couldn't help but hesitate. His luck today is not good. He looked at it and found that the number of used collections has increased by 280 times. He thought it would be good to break through the next level of the collection technique as soon as possible. But he thought about it, set up the cloud and flew to the giant vines of Arpeardo. When Sha Chen saw this thing for the first time, he wanted to collect it. The collection technique is most appropriate when used on plants. He found a suitable position and put his hand on the giant vine, and it was another 10 combo. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 300 points of physical fitness, 600 points of spirit, swordsmanship level 3, and 2 lightning wood. Sha Chen blinked hard to make sure that the light balls in front of him were correct, and he was not dazzled. Both physical fitness and spirit were critical hits. Sha Chen had expected it, but why did he use swordsmanship? And it was level 3. So far, none of Sha Chen's main combat skills have reached level 3. Many people's images flashed through his mind. Finally, it was fixed on 3 people: the Pirate King Galdi, Roger, his Vice Captain Pluto Rayleigh, and the new crew member Kazuki Odin. According to the information Sha Chen knew, these 3 people were all masters of swordsmanship. It was probably unknown whether the others knew swordsmanship. There was no doubt that the swordsmanship of these 3 people was at the level of great swordsmen. Coincidentally, the Pirate King team also came to Sky Island and left a string of ancient characters on the base of the Golden Bell. I came here to guide this text to the last place. But according to the law of collection, there must be traces before there are results. In other words, Sha Chen looked up at the giant vine that looked obviously withered. If you listen carefully, you can hear some faint cracking sounds. This is the pressure exerted on it by the bricks, stones and soil it supports. After all, Sha Chen collected so many attribute points at one time, and some of them couldn't bear it. Now we can see how abnormal Sha Chen's current physical and mental attributes are. Let's get back to the topic. This giant vine must have been cut by Rayleigh and others, otherwise it was impossible for him to obtain level 3 swordsmanship. However, how embarrassed is Zoro? Sha Chen couldn't close his mouth with laughter. He could actually stop collecting here. The 30 collections he had invested before were not a loss at all, but he still threw a 10 combo at the giant vine again. Collection successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 300 points of physical fitness and 500 points of spirit, skills, jauntization, lightning wood, gravel, apple. Crack, crack. The giant vine could no longer bear it. With the first sound of breaking, there was a continuous cracking sound. Sha Chen teleported away quickly. In the end, the entire vine was crushed by the large number of buildings on the top and fell down. Sha Chen didn't think about it and summoned a large amount of water to support the fallen bricks and stones. Then he cleaned them up to the side, and finally only the giant vine was left lying limply on the side, full of dry cracks and a faint trace of green. Those palaces, courtyards, and ruins were moved to the side by Sha Chen as much as possible. The ruins of Shandora were not affected too much, and the movement here also attracted Luffy and others. Sha Chen deliberately took a long detour and came from a distance on a cloud. What's going on? The key is to blame others for what they have done. Lord Sha Chen, we don't know either. Chief Shandora was frustrated. He did bring Kulakai to explore the ruins at noon today, but it was only to fulfill the long-cherished wish of his ancestors, and the representative significance was greater than the practical significance. And they would not cause damage to the buildings here. Finally, under the command of Robin, everyone tried their best to rescue the ruins. They found that the ruins were not damaged much, except that the vine that soared into the sky was broken, and the buildings that fell from it, although some of them broke into several pieces, miraculously did not damage the ancient ruins below. And the only person who could do this on the scene was Sha Chen. After all, for a man who could pull a 1,000 square kilometer island from Qinghai, 10,000 meters below, taking over these buildings was just a piece of cake. However, his own people saw it clearly and would not say anything. They knew that Sha Chen must have his deep meaning in doing this, and even if there was no reason, they would stand by their companions. The people of Shandia dared not say anything, as no one had a bigger fist. It was just a relic, so it was destroyed. The most valuable things had been taken away by Sha Chen and his men, so what else could be done? Should Sha Chen pay for it? I'm afraid that the entire Arpayado would sink inexplicably in the next second. So everyone returned to the banquet with their own thoughts. Except for Luffy, some people who didn't know the truth continued to make a fuss, and the interest of the rest was obviously affected. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.